Hello and welcome to In the Garage. No more teasers, just give us those Weezers.
There it is.
Hey, I'm talking until I introduce you. My name is Chris, as I'm sure you already know. If you're listening out there, send help. I think we should just get right to it. I mean, we've got a lot to talk about. It's very late. We usually record late, but tonight we went even later than usual. We always listen to the album first before we record the episode.
So it's nice and fresh.
Again, this is sort of my time to monologue. But that person is right. They've not been introduced, but this album is like 45 minutes long, and so, I mean, I'm just going to give a little peek behind the curtain. It's 11:30 at night. We're feeling it. We're feeling good. We're going to have a good time tonight. Hope you're all doing well out there. I'm going to just move on. I'm going to introduce one of my co-hosts. He is the Weezer neophyte. Mm-hmm. He is just a cute little baby. Mm-hmm. He's wearing nothing but a diaper. Ooh. As he often does. He's drinking a beer from a bottle. It's Tyler. Tyler, how you doing today?
I gotta say, I'm liking each album so far more than the one before it, from Green onward. And
spoilers, but okay.
I'm really, really excited to talk about this album in particular right now, tonight, with you.
Nice. How you feeling just in general?
Oh.
Gulp.
My finger's really sore.
Okay. So, gonna move to my other co-host. He is the Chip Man. He was off mic before we started recording. Well, maybe it was captured by the mic. He was regaling us with stories about how many chips he ate last night.
We were regaled.
He is the... I'm glad that you were introduced so you can chime in now. He is the Weezer super fan. He's wearing a beautiful Ferrari. Would you call that a crew neck sweater, I suppose?
Yeah, well, I don't want to chime in too much as I haven't fully been introduced yet, but yeah, crew neck sweatshirt.
Yeah,
This guy
Chaz
plays
is
by
here.
the rules of the podcast.
Yeah.
Way to talk over his introduction, but okay. Chaz, what's poppin'? What do you want to talk about?
I think I'm done talking about chips. I just get hungry when
Let's talk about Weezer. You guys like these guys?
Yeah.
I'm coming round.
Ooh. Good. So that's been What Do You Think About Weezer? And today we are going to talk about Weezer's, just throw it out there without looking. What number album is this?
5.
Don't think.
Oh, were you asking him?
No. Anyone can answer. That's right. It's their 5th studio album, Make Believe.
Will you guys agree with me? The worst album cover so far.
Easily.
Oh, I mean, as I mentioned, I have a note here. I take notes for the show on my phone, one of which is just the cover ... So, I mean, let's break it down.
First appearance by Scott Schreiner.
Nope.
On the cover?
On the
on the cover.
We're talking about the
What
cover.
an asshole. What I was gonna say is, first time that there's it's not a just self-titled Weezer album where the picture is just the 4 of them standing. Mm-hmm. Just a cool little tidbit I thought I'd point out there. But yeah, it's a black cover.
Some sort of...
Pat is wearing a weird shirt. I'm just staring at it right now, just trying to parse what's going on.
Looking the most awkward he's looked. I'm going to say even more so than the Blue album, which is very, intentionally awkward.
Yeah.
It feels like on Make Believe they are trying not to look awkward, and that makes it all the more awkward.
Scott's knees are weirdly bent.
He looks like he's got to pee right now.
Very uncomfortable in that position.
There's a high school drawing of a dragon and flowers in the background.
Yeah, it looks like something an edgy kid would have drawn or
I
something.
can't decide which I dislike more, the white glow between them and the drawing, or just the purple presentation of the actual album name underneath the band name.
Oh, jeez.
There's a lot to hate. But
Actually, interestingly enough, they're standing in the same order they stood on the Blue album, which I think is the first time they'd done that, like, on a self-titled album, I guess.
Yeah, they were all mixed up on Green.
Yeah. Same
of the two
Red,
albums
too.
that have come out since
No,
then.
I mean, like, even Red, I think they're in a different order, and I don't know about White off the top of my head.
I know
Red's a different order.
White. Can we talk about how old/young Rivers looks in any given photograph?
Compared to what he actually looks like.
No, I'm saying...
Like the song photograph?
Yes. No, I'm saying from their return in Green onward, he seems to look either 19 or 50 in every single picture.
Yeah, he looks really young on Green.
He looks pretty old on Make Believe.
Yeah.
He looks like a dad.
His hairline looks a little bit recedy.
But there are pictures from White where he looks super young.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it is definitely just a haircut thing.
I think it is too.
Like when there's a point, I'm not sure exactly what the chronology is, but when he has the beard.
Yeah, in I guess
Is that like Everything Will Be Alright era? Or
well, you have the beard during
comes and goes.
Maladroit, right? Like on the
Dope Nose music video. He's got the
Dope
beard.
Nose
Oh, yeah.
music video. And if you look at videos of them recording Pinkerton, he's got that huge bushy beard that just looks terrible.
oh yeah.
Rivers is one of those guys where, he doesn't look too masculine, and sometimes, speaking to myself, like if you don't look too masculine, go, I'm going to grow a beard, that'll fix everything. And sometimes it just doesn't come together. And with Rivers, who are we to speak on someone else's appearance in life? But Rivers
Good
looks
point.
Exactly what we do.
That's what we love to do.
But Rivers with a beard is just shape. He looks better.
That's true.
Yeah.
Except here. So let's talk about the album. Well, just while we're on the topic of the cover, couple of alternate titles that were suggested. First one from Pat, 1,000 Soviet Children Marching Towards the Sun.
Wow.
I think we were talking about this a little bit earlier. We're slowly discovering that Pat is just the worst, I feel like. It feels like all of the things that are like really like oof moments from Weezer, Pat's lurking in the shadows of them. And then the other suggested title was Either Way I'm Fine, which is
I kind of dig that.
it's like this is actually, I really like it too. It's something that Rivers would say in the studio, so it'd be like, oh, do you want the guitar part to sound like this or sound like this? And then he would say, either way, I'm fine. So, subtle dig at Rivers. I'm a fan of that one.
That sounds like a Brian suggestion to me.
Sure. I believe it.
Yeah, I mean...
Both of those make more sense. No, the Soviet Children one does not make more sense.
Makes more sense. How?
The Either Way I'm Fine one makes a lot more sense than Make Believe, I feel. Make Believe doesn't really comment on anything about the album or anything like that.
Yeah, I think Make Believe is a sort of allusion to the fact that around this time Rivers was getting into meditation, is what I've heard.
Due in large part to their producer that they run
Let's
to for
talk
this
about
album.
it.
Let's talk about him.
Oh, Ricky.
The metal guru himself.
Mr. Lying on a Couch. That's a thing about Rick Rubin.
That's a thing he does.
Is that he lies on the couch. But yeah, so
Rick Rubin.
You got Rick Rubin.
They're big fans of Rick's to produce their...
Yeah, honestly, I'm not a huge Rick guy.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, well,
Rick,
I mean, like...
Rubin or Ocasek?
Rubin.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, 99 Problems. We all love it. But it seems like, I don't know, it's just, there are some good things that have come out of Rick Rubin, but it feels like he's just a little too much, like, a little too pretentious, a little too just, like, doesn't show up. Like, that's a common criticism we hear about him is like, oh, like, we recorded this album and we saw him, like, 4 times total.
Mm-hmm. And it feels like he often has those kind of, like, wild, kind of spaced out, like, crazy genius vibe. But
yeah.
Same with Brian Eno, but with, like, Brian Eno kind of has these famous, like, idiosyncrasies where he'll, like, pull, like, kind of roll dice and pull ideas out of a hat. And bands will go with that. But
kind of Rivers-esque.
But Brian Eno, has kind of this legacy of, bands go to him and they end up making their best material. feel like Rick Rubin doesn't quite have that.
Yeah, I mean, like more with hip hop, I guess, to a certain
yeah,
degree.
he also started Def Jam, right?
Yeah.
So he's more tied in with that.
And the Peppers, Chili Peppers,
Yeah.
Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Oh.
But yeah, so this actually, it does, I feel like, have some hallmarks of a Rick Rubin record. One thing that is sort of like a hallmark of his style is that he tries to like strip down, especially with vocals, so like not as much like double tracking vocals, not as much reverb and stuff. And I do feel like the very first thing I wrote when I was listening to this album is that this is the sort of the cleanest vocal takes
Oh yeah.
that we've heard on an album, and a lot less harmony. Like the background
vocally,
vocals are mixed, like it seems like pretty deep in the background, and then and they're less sort of direct harmonies with the melody line. It's more like backing vocals almost.
Brian, as we've talked about it before, and on this album, as always, Brian is yelling from another room for his background vocals.
It really is. Like, I don't know how they haven't noticed or fixed that at this point, unless it's just kind of the sound they're going for. But I get that. I feel like that's more predominant with Brian than with anyone else's backing vocals.
It does, yeah, it does really seem that way. Another Rick Rubin thing is he sort of encourages artists to step outside of their normal like genre pool. So, for example, he was behind the Johnny Cash recording "Hurt," which is a Nine Inch Nails cover. He also did a Depeche Mode cover with Rick Rubin, and so I do feel like this is the least Weezer-y sounding Weezer album that we've come. Well, maybe Maladroit, but
I think Maladroit takes the cake for most un-Weezer like.
It's most jarring going from one to the other.
Yeah, basing this off a few things that I've read about his work on James Blake album from a few years ago. It feels like he has a lot of artists going like kind of taking everything back to the drawing board and going, like, hey, what are we?
Back to basics.
Yeah, so it feels like Weezer in this album is kind of going like, what is Weezer again? What do we put into our songs?
That's interesting that you say that, because to me, like, to a certain degree, I would agree, but I also feel like this sort of represents like a pretty big shifting point for them. Mainly in terms of like instrumentation, but just like generally, it seems like to me the sort of way that I looked at this is the album where Weezer becomes like late 2000s Weezer.
Yeah.
Like where they become like the Red Album, Ratitude, Hurley band.
I get that feeling as well on this one.
The thought in my head listening to this album is this weird feedback loop that doesn't happen with too many artists, where I feel like on this album they are being influenced by artists that were originally influenced by their first albums.
That's interesting.
I can't think of too many specific names. Like I just feel 2005 was that time of like Jimmy Eat World, Franz Ferdinand.
Yeah, we talked a little bit
a few
on the last
other
episode
bands.
about sort of the rise of like emo and indie rock. So I definitely get that. Like, it does seem like at this point it's sort of they're moving closer to mainstream rock, which we talked about them sort of moving away from. But at this point, mainstream rock is indie rock. It's like Killers, Franz Ferdinand, like you said, like that kind of sound. Like I mentioned before, so like usually I write down some sort of historical notes from the era surrounding the recording. Pretty much the only one of two that I have here is Rivers gone into meditation.
Through Rick Rubin, he gets a lot of people into meditation.
Yeah, it did seem like there were some interesting sort of influences that Rick Rubin had on the recording, like.
Pardon me, Rivers wrote that after a specific meditational practice where you apparently are supposed to go ask everyone that you've wronged for.
My favorite part about that, though, is
for
pardon
forgiveness.
Me is, we'll save it for the list.
Yeah, save it, baby, save it.
Yeah.
And so, there's a lot of like
songs were written after periods of fasting.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
Hold Me was written. He fasted for 24 hours, then wrote a song. And the one that I found really interesting was. Rick Rubin, he told Rivers Cuomo to, quote, write a Billy Joel or Elton John type of song. So the result, it was the first song that Rivers wrote entirely on piano. Can you guess what it is?
Well, I know the answer already, so it's kind of cheating.
Oh.
Do you want to guess, Chaz?
I don't. Wow. I was going to say maybe Haunt You Every Day.
That's right.
Yeah, wow.
First song Rivers wrote entirely on piano. Which I really like, to be honest, in terms of I like how this band decided at this point in their career, hey, let's incorporate piano more.
Yeah,
And I feel like
that's a huge
that
That's
idea
a
comes to fruition on later albums more, but I like the fact that they now start getting into the idea of incorporating piano as
Or
the right
other
songs.
like keyed instruments, I guess. On Pinkerton, you had a decent amount of synth, but that was like a monophonic synth where you'd play it almost like as a lead instrument instead of, say, a lead guitar. But I've noticed from this point on, they've started more so using like synths and pianos in their songs as a more rhythm instrument.
Yeah, just like it seems to be like more instrumentation in general, like more complex instrumentation rather than their albums up to this point have been. It sounds like there's 4 guys in the studio. They're all playing one instrument.
Yeah.
And there's not a whole lot of sort of arrangement around that, maybe a little bit, but this one, it does seem like they really like kick into that. I mean,
Because at that point, before Make Believe, 2 out of 4 of their albums were essentially self-produced. They self-produced Pinkerton and self-produced Maladroit.
right.
And the other 2 before that were Rick Ocasek, which
True.
in that case were aiming for very slick pop. And I feel...
Little Slick Rick.
And in this case, I view, there's obviously no way to tell, kind of like the creative process is so complicated, but looking back, I really like the idea that they included Rick Rubin's creative process into this.
Yeah. They will go on to work with Rick on Red, and then he gets the old dumperoony. It's weird. I actually thought that they had worked with him more, but I was going through their albums, and it's just these 2.
Yeah.
We'll jump right into it. I don't want to get to the tracks just yet. The one big thing it seems about this album is that people say about it, at least, is that it's them returning to more emotionally vulnerable lyrics. And I wanted to sort of poll you guys, see, do you consider that accurate or not? Chaz, I'll start with you. What do you think?
Absolutely. That line from Perfect Situation where it's like, I can't satisfy all the needs she has, and so she starts to wonder, can I blame her?
Wonder, but yes.
Can you blame her?
Wonder? What did I say?
I think you said wonder.
Oh, I don't know.
It's not important.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. For me, I'm kind of 2 minds because, like, to me, when you say that you're talking about emotional vulnerability, obviously you think of Blue and Pinkerton, and I don't think it quite reaches that level, but I'm not sure if it's just being less vulnerable or if the lyrics just aren't as good. Thoughts, Tyler?
Yeah, I would say this album feels very much to me like a specific attempt to recapture part of the emotional tone of Blue, specifically over Pinkerton. And I'd say that if you're going to call Make Believe an attempt to recreate Blue, it fails in that respect because like half of what makes Blue so interesting is this very specific instrumental arrangement style that they're going for, like this mix of acoustic and electric and all these weird things that they're trying out, flicking the piano strings on the end of Sweater Song, things like that. And I feel like it feels like what they were trying to go for is, hey, what if we take that wide-eyed emotional frustration of Blue and took it into 2005, really simplified it, really pared it down, slicked it back. And in that sense, I think it failed. They don't hit those same heights of Blue. But for me, listening through it and being very new to Green and Maladroit and Make Believe, it is very refreshing to hear them, to hear Rivers like sound like he's been sitting on stuff for a while. And the fact that he's singing this song is like a load off his chest.
Yeah, that's another thing is that like during this time they like demoed hundreds of songs apparently.
Yeah.
During the 3-year stretch.
Demos for this.
Yeah, like on Maladroit they were releasing demos, and actually none of the demos they released actually ended up being on the album. So like there was definitely a ton of material to draw from.
Yeah, this is a weird period of time for them, which I think can segue into a bit of a mini topic that I wanted to bring up, which is that they came back in 2001 with Green and then followed up right away in 2002 with Maladroit, and then took another 3 years to come out with Make Believe, which in part, the inclusion of Rick Rubin, and he has that process that you've said of stripping everything back and making a band kind of...
The Liam Payne, I call it.
Go back to the drawing board and decide who they are and everything. But
stripping that down.
In that time period, we talked about it a bit at the end of the last episode.
Do you get it though?
What?
Like the song "Strip That Down" by Liam Payne,
I don't know.
featuring Quavo.
No, I don't know it.
Okay, never mind.
I'm sorry.
Go on with what you're saying.
I'm sorry.
No one likes me.
The time period between Maladroit and Make Believe sees the
Chaz's
Stop.
famous Eeyore impression.
the time period between from 2002 to 2005. Stop!
No, I'm laughing about
Stop it.
something else now. I'm wearing these basketball shorts and I just keep slipping down my back. They're so slippery.
Stop!
Oh,
Let's all just take our clothes off right now.
ooh.
Okay.
There's always a bit of erotic tension in these podcasts because we do record them in Chaz's bedroom. And I do usually get under the covers because it's pretty cold.
This time period between Maladroit and Make Believe also sees the rise and fall of a very specific internet forum called the Rivers Correspondence Board,
Yes.
abbreviated to the RCB, which, from last episode, Chris, you were quoting some very infamous lines from Rivers where he went onto the forum in 2002 as Maladroit was being made. These demos were being released daily, and people were listening to songs like December and going, you know what? It's good stuff, but it doesn't, like, it's not as special to me as Only in Dreams. As songs like Only in Dreams. And Rivers would come on. He was called Ace on those forums, and everyone called him by Ace, but they all knew it was Rivers. And he went on and goes like, hey, no, you're all super gay, his words. Only in Dreams is gay, gay, gay. You're gay if you like it. It's the gayest thing in the world. I hate it. We all hate it. It's super corny. I ran out of songs to release on the Blue album. So, and these songs that I'm working on now, like December, are all so much better. A forum like that, which is kind of unprecedented in the fact that the members of the band were posting on it. That forum lasts until 2005 with the release of Make Believe, because it kind of, this forum, the RCB, kind of crumbles under its own whatever reputation, which I find super interesting because, you know, you think to the internet in 2018, you're like, oh, what a mess, like Facebook and Twitter and all these things going on, and then like just to read about this forum in 2002 and 2003 that had to go private. I think like it was public. Anyone who found it could post on it, and the moderators of this forum had to make it private and like do a bit of a screening test for anyone who wanted to join because it became such a mess.
And I think during Maladroit, it actually went private at Rivers' request because they were sharing the new demos there.
Oh yeah, okay, so that's how it became kind of this locus point for Weezer fans on the internet.
Yeah, basically because like he didn't want journalists or whatever he wanted it to be a for the fans kind of experience.
Any thoughts on that, Chaz?
No.
Okay.
I guess sort of from what I understand, the Weezer forum, All Things Weezer, kind of came out as a result of the Rivers Correspondence Board sort of crumbling, right? They needed a place for a lot of the more like hardcore fans that know like every song and every demo to gather, as opposed to just like some fucking casual like let's talk about like 3 of their singles or something like that, or like, oh, I only like Blue and Pinkerton. But
like when the island is in the sun. Sorry.
My point was done anyways, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I find it interesting that one of the earlier internet communities became so publicly like toxic and like, oh, like we like people became like, oh, we can't go on there anymore because it's such a mess.
Yeah, it'll make us wheeze.
Yeah.
Because the air was toxic. What do you think, Chaz? Get it? It'll make
it was about as good as the rest of your comments.
It'll make you cough and wheeze.
Coughing and wheezing.
It'll make you
Yeah.
diss your homies.
Hey,
Shut up, Tyler.
let's
I
kill
feel
ourselves.
like it's time to get into the tracks.
Yes, let's get into the tracks. I didn't do this last episode, and I was sad about it. That's right, tisk tisk on me. So I will give the track listing proper 1 to 12. This is also the longest Weezer album, as I mentioned at the top, 45 minutes long. So, we've got Beverly Hills, Perfect Situation, This Is Such a Pity, Hold Me, Peace, We Are All on Drugs, The Damage in Your Heart, Pardon Me, My Best Friend, The Other Way, Freak Me Out, and Haunt You Every Day. So, those are the tracks, and now we put them on the wax, as I like to call it. As we usually do, we're going to rank these bad boys, see which one comes out on top. If you're new to the show, we all make our individual... Are you reaching for a chip bag right now?
Fiddling for noisy objects.
Ooh.
I gotta say, your recent that comment, what you just said about listening to it, more than one person has approached me saying, "Hey, I want to listen to this
You,
podcast."
like on the street?
Yeah, random people on the street, homeless people.
People on the street?
You host.
Did it eat that day?
Fuck.
Sorry.
No.
Can't wait for our Queen podcast.
Yo. No, friends have come up to me and said, "Hey, I want to listen to this podcast. Should I listen to the albums first?" And my response is always, "Yeah."
Yeah.
What are you thinking? We're talking about these songs. We're talking about the lyrics that they're saying on the songs. We're talking about the instruments that they play on the songs.
That would be a disaster.
Like, if anyone out there is listening to these podcasts, like, please just listen to the albums.
Also, go back to episode 1.
Go back to the episode 1, listen to the albums, then don't people, I think, feel, oh, hey, I can just barge ahead and I can listen to the album later. That's just that's just extra.
Yeah, this isn't
extra points.
How
I
did
can
this
just
get
listen.
made shit?
Yeah,
Where
no.
you can listen to the episode and
Where,
enjoy it on its own merit.
It's funny on its own. I don't have to see this movie.
No, we're useless without Weezer.
We're nothing without these songs. Just go listen to those albums.
And
Before, listen to the album, listen to the podcast. These albums are not long.
especially if you
have time to listen to a 2-hour podcast
You have
about
time
some
to listen-
shitty band,
you have
like
time to listen to a 25-minute album. But especially if you haven't listened to Weezer and you just happen to choose this episode in particular, hey, listen to the Blue Album in Pinkerton.
Yeah, and even if you don't care about this podcast, which you shouldn't, like, I feel
Hey, I think this podcast is good.
This podcast is good, but you don't need to listen to it.
That's
but
true.
I feel people really should, even if they don't care about this podcast at all, should listen to Blue and Pinkerton, because I think at this point they have become cultural like milestones of pop music.
Yeah, they're
and
very good.
They're very good albums.
They're good to listen to.
Not only are they good to listen to, but I feel listening to Blue and Pinkerton like gives you more insight to albums that are coming out today. And
That's
the influence
true.
that they've had on the music scene.
Yeah,
And what artists feel they're allowed to do.
Yeah, a very specific sort of like, I mean, obviously in the 90s, everyone kind of thinks of grunge as sort of the defining sound of the 90s, especially as far as rock is concerned. But there is this you can sort of trace very specifically this current, I mean, you could even say like, you could go like back to New Wave or something like that, of sort of this like pop tinted, punkish sound. And then go all the way through pop punk, Blink-182, and obviously that's sort of an arc that continues throughout up until today. So I guess what I'm trying to say is Weezer. Listen to them.
Listen to them, and then come listen to us.
Yeah.
I read a really interesting interview with Rivers where he was talking about the time period around the creation of the band. And he was talking about how he moved. You don't think about it, but you know, Blue came out in 94. He moved to LA in the late 80s and actually tried to be like a hair metal rock star. Mm-hmm. So he had his hair super long and he was walking around trying to fit in with that, and he failed. And that process of failing and trying to get into that late 80s rock scene made him go back. And he says in this interview, I think it's with Rolling Stone, he went back and looked at pictures of him as a kid and thought, oh, there's this innocent, childlike aesthetic to rock like the Beach Boys that hasn't really been explored. And it was that very specific, like, we're going to cut our hair, we're going to wear very simple clothes, we're going to play very innocent songs about love and heartbreak. So it was a very calculated move to explore this area of rock that wasn't explored.
More intentional.
It was very intentional.
Calculated. Calculated kind of has a connotation to it. But yeah. So yeah, Weezer, very good band.
Listen to them, and then listen to the podcast.
Yeah, this is a podcast for people who have listened to Weezer too many times and
they're sick of listening to the music and want to hear people talk about the music.
in lieu. It's like Man, I really wish there was more Weezer music for me to listen to, but there's not, so I'll listen to this alternative form of Weezer-based audio just to fill the hours.
It's like what like clinics feed to addicts to like it's not
Yeah,
a drug,
we
but
are
it keeps them going.
Weezer methadone. That is the tagline of the band. And by the band, I do mean the podcast. Let's kill ourselves. So, the number 12 track. Everyone get your... Oh, I didn't like that. Everyone just get your round-shaped ear holes
I don't like this at all.
and put them on some stocks. Because we've got My Best Friend, originally written for Shrek 2. I was describing Shrek's ears there, to be clear. They're kind of round and they're on sort of...
Poles.
You heard it here first. Shrek's ears are on poles.
They're round things on poles.
Like some suckers. Stop fucking all my items up, Tyler.
Shrek's ears looking like some lollipops, crying, laughing emoji. It's a good tweet. But My Best Friend. What do we think about this? As we may have, I think we mentioned this on an earlier episode, this song was written for Shrek 2, and then they basically discarded it because they thought it sounded too much like it had been written for Shrek.
Which it had not been at all.
Right.
I like this fact a lot. He had written it completely independently of Shrek.
It's like off.
And then brought it to Shrek. And they were like, no, you wrote this for this movie. How do you feel? How much do you feel as a songwriter if you like go off into your own creative space and come back with a song and the creators of Shrek go, no, you made this for Shrek.
They reshrekted it. So that was eventually replaced by Accidentally in Love by Counting Crows, which I actually think is a really good song.
It's really funny because my youngest brother, his two favorite bands, I think, are Weezer and the Counting Crows. So.
It's very interesting. I don't know. I was going to say I don't know anyone in their like 20s or 30s who's into Counting Crows, and then I realized I don't know anyone who's into Counting Crows. That's a good song. It's better than All Star. It's better than this song. Tyler, I'm going to start with you. What are your general thoughts on this song?
This is the second half of Make Believe. At this point, they've established a very emotional mood. Rivers has a lot of stuff on his chest. He hasn't really been emotional on songs for a while, and for Green and Maladroit, he stated very specifically that he was avoiding being super emotional. And then My Best Friend is a song that kind of cuts in which to my ears sounds like a very Revolver style. Like they're really trying to go for that super bouncy, distorted rock style.
Interesting.
But it ends up, for me, washing out into the most forgettable chorus. Most of these songs actually stuck in my head in a way that songs on Green and Maladroit didn't. Mm-hmm. Like thinking back, like, oh yeah, The Other Way, or
yeah,
Peace.
They are.
I remember what those songs sound like.
There is definitely a lot more that these songs do to distinguish themselves from each other.
But I don't remember what My Best Friend sounds like.
I really like the opening guitar part, and I don't even hate the verses, but the chorus is just garbage.
Really? I've got some contrasting opinions on this.
Okay, jump in on that.
Oh, I was gonna let you finish, but
No, that's pretty much all I had. It's just that, yeah, I like the sort of main riff. It's just sort of inane is the word I would use to describe it. It's just really like,
I agree.
I mean, like, this is a Weezer podcast, so like inanity, we kind of trade in that. But in this situation, it's not a perfect one, I'll tell you that much. It feels like even Weezer like went too far in the inanity category.
for this one, I think it feels like way too upbeat and happy for this album.
Yeah.
And it feels really out of place, I think, like the main riff and stuff of it. And like the intro when it comes to it, it reminds me a lot of Possibilities off of Maladroit, where it just kind of comes in, you're like, this is really upbeat and poppy, and it feels very out of place on this album.
Yeah.
And while I thought Possibilities is like a pretty fun song, I do enjoy that song. I don't think Best Friend really fully captures what almost what Possibilities was to Maladroit, at least in my opinion, because I know the other two of us here didn't like that song nearly as much as I did.
Mm-hmm.
I think, in theory, this could have been a really good song. Like a couple of the other songs that I have ranked lower on this album. But I think a lot of it's ruined by really horrible lyrics. Like ones where you just hear the lyrics and you're just like, oh no.
I think
Like,
I think that holds true for a lot of this album. I think even like there are some songs where it's just like this music is good but the lyrics are pretty bad, and then there are some songs, I mean, we'll get to one that I actually really like, but that we were talking about earlier where it's truly a very good song, and then in the blink of an eye, like there's just one or two lines that are just so bad that like you can't stomach them.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a couple songs on the second half of this album where it really feels like they were trying to meet like a certain amount of songs that they wanted to put on the album and like a time deadline as well. So you've got some bones of songs that it almost feels like Rivers had kicking around for a while, and then they're just like, all right, fuck it, like let's throw this together, let's get this done real quick. And it ends up being somewhat sloppy and just having lyrics that I feel a lot of times are almost forced, like they like shove syllables together, or just are just so hard to listen to.
Yeah, the lyrics especially. I mean, like I like pretty much all the music on this album, but the lyrics in particular, it really feels like they just did like a first pass, and it's like they didn't bother to be like, oh, that sounds awkward. Like we can rewrite this a different way. Like there's so many lines that, like you said, like it just doesn't quite fit or flow properly.
Yeah, there's a lot of moments on this album, at least on some of the songs that don't flow, but I 100% agree with you, where I think all the music is fairly good, like, or really good. Even at its worst, it's still, like, much better than a lot of the music on Maladroit, but the lyrics are just, like, I don't even know. It almost ramps you up for moments on Red where it's like, how the like just some lines on the Red
Yeah.
Oh, we'll get to Red.
Yeah, it does. This problem does become progressively worse, where it's like it's really like they've lost it at certain points.
It's such an odd qualification to put on a band, but Weezer really does seem to function best with the idea of a 10-song track list.
Yeah,
No more, no less, just 10 songs. And Maladroit had 13 songs, Make Believe has 12 songs. It feels like every single time they're trying something new and interesting to say, hey, let's push ourselves, let's try and do more than 10 songs. And every time they do, the end result is just like, you could have cut out those songs. If you cut back down to 10 songs, the end result would have been better.
Yeah, it's like 10 songs worth of quality spread over 12 tracks, and so you have these it's like it's like it's made of like gum.
It's a great way to put it.
And they just like they tried to like it's like they had it like stretched over this 10 track size, and then
They're spread
too
thin.
Yeah, so thin. It's like, oh, like you start to like pull it towards that 12 tracks, and then some little holes start showing up in the middle, and that's what some of these lyrics are.
I think this song, like every song on this album, definitely has like some redeeming qualities to them.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Where, like, I do like the chorus, like with the staccato guitar a lot, where they're just kind of like hitting the chords. But I don't know, like writing songs about friendship just seems like I don't know. There's something about it.
You gotta have a really specific angle if you're gonna sing about friendship.
Yeah.
Like even like
if you're gonna write a song about friendship, the chorus cannot be "You're my best friend and I love you."
Should be something about you and your best friend Michael. Say
Nice. This is a good time to bring up that I've got an archived page from the old Weezer site. It's hard. I'm not really sure how to track how old pages that I find on Wayback Machine are, but I'm pretty sure this page dates back to 2005 when Make Believe came out, but it is in fact a track by track where the band chimes in with a few thoughts on every single track.
Which is really such a good find.
That really is.
And for My Best Friend, they again are kind of hung up on the fact that they submitted this song for approval to Shrek.
They submitted it to Shrek.
It's weird. They refer to Shrek
in character.
River says, I remember I originally wrote it.
I showed Shrek and Donkey, and they were not into it.
No, River says Shrek asked us if we had a song. Okay, Shrek asked us if we had a song. I remember I originally wrote it about some guy I met, comma, because this guy was kind of ogre-ish and he made me laugh.
What?
And that's what made him pick that song from the archive again.
What?
They spent 3 years writing songs. They had hundreds of songs. So Shrek just asked Weezer, hey, would you like to give us a song?
Hey,
And
well,
Rivers
he's
went,
probably said it more like this. Hey,
no, let's not.
can
let's
you
not do that.
give me a
I don't,
song?
No, I don't approve of
Hey,
this.
Rivers.
No, Chris, no.
Donkey.
No, I don't want this. I'll filibuster this bit.
Hey,
No.
Shrek. Hey, I think it sounds good, man. And you're like my best friend. Oh, Donkey, you're my best friend too. I love you. That's right. They were kissing in front of Rivers.
And then what?
Ooh. We'll talk about it.
the fart mic.
We'll talk about it off mic. I'm sorry. Please continue with what you were saying.
So this page records a back and forth between the band where Rivers kind of goes, yeah, I don't know if there's that much to say about the song. And Pat goes, well, it was rejected for Shrek. And they're talking about that. And Rivers goes, oh, yeah, I wrote this song about a guy I met who seemed ogre-ish.
Also, the fact that, like,
He made me laugh, and that's why I picked this song to submit to DreamWorks for Weezer.
the fact that it's a song called My Best Friend. The chorus is "You're my best friend and I love
And
you."
I love you.
And it's like, oh, what is this song about? Some guy I met. Like, not even a specific person.
Okay, quote, Brian, and you changed the lyrics for them, right? Rivers. I had to change the lyrics so it sounded less Shrek-like. Pat, Shreky? And they talk about that for a bit.
Oh,
Scott chimes in, it will live on longer than Shrek 2 will.
wow.
Oh,
Thanks to memes, we all know that is objectively
That's
untrue.
fully false, yeah.
Yeah, Shrek is really having a renaissance.
It's got a second life,
Yeah.
really. The band kind of agrees in this exchange that they regret the fact that this song was still very much in a demo phase when they submitted it. And they both said, everyone agrees that this song, they like it much more in its completed state on the album, and they wish they could have submitted it.
The album track still sounds like a demo.
And nevertheless, they wish they could have submitted that final form to Shrek, and they think things would have gone differently. They're really hung up on this
You would have gotten a big
relationship with
smile.
fucking Shrek.
And his plates on rods would have sprung up in excitement. But I think we've said more than enough about the bottom ranked song on our list. So let's move on. Actually, this is a song that I think sort of I have the least to say about. Pardon Me.
Oh,
That's song number 11 on our list. Pardon Me. Yeah, I mean, like this does. I mean, there are certain album cuts on this album that I feel like are really good. I mean, 2 of my basically top 5 songs I would call just sort of normal album cuts. Like, they just kind of sound like they're sort of forming they're sort of just little building blocks, you know? They're not the cherry on top. They're not the foundation. They're just somewhere in the middle. And sometimes that's really good, but then, Pardon Me, it's just not particularly interesting to me. And I feel like that's why I had it where it was. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on this album, Chaz?
This song, I think this is the worst track off the album. I think the lyrics are absolutely horrible. There's some interesting, like, vocal melodies at certain parts, but, like, that part where he goes, like, I can learn self-control, I was like, what the fuck is this? Sounds like something off a children's TV show, like, and not even a good children's TV show, like Yo Gabba Gabba or something like that. This is one of those songs that just makes you cringe all throughout the lyrics, but, like, it definitely has decent parts, like, lyrically. I think this is another one of the songs where it really could have been a decent track if Rivers put more effort into it and didn't write horrible lyrics. But I mean, like, even down to the solo, it's really bland. But that's another thing that is really, like, not set in stone, and you could change at, like, any point up until the last minute, I feel like. But this is another one of those like really half-assed tracks, I think, where it's got some good bones, but it just didn't turn out well at all.
This is the song that made me think, oh, the fact that a song is really sincere doesn't automatically make it good.
Yeah.
And kind of my main note for this is, like, this song seems more important to Rivers than to us.
Yeah.
Like, it seems really...
Because, like you said, like, the story about him...
Rick Rubin got him into meditation, and one of these exercises in meditation was seeking forgiveness from other people.
From every person that you could have wronged in any way.
Which, thinking back on my own life, that's a lot of people.
Yeah.
Tyler's not a great person.
Tyler's a criminal.
I'm a terrible guy.
No, but yeah, I know what you mean. It really, it feels like this being on the album was more like Rivers, like, it was important to him that it be on the album.
Well, you know, good for him for using
like,
songs to move forward as a person, but it could have used some more
it's
work.
great for you. I don't know if it's great for Weezer.
Yeah.
I've got the band exchanging some anecdotes about this song.
Mm-hmm.
Brian has a great story about they were going over half-finished songs at Rick Rubin's house, and Brian actually went, oh, hey, wait a second, I've got a CD with Pardon Me on this song, on the CD. So he goes back, and the band had to, like, fight for it and make a case for it, which I'm kind of surprised at. Because there are other songs where one member of the band went, oh, I don't know, it doesn't really seem like anything we would do, and the rest of the band talked them into it. So, and for this song, it seemed like they all presented it to Rick Rubin, and Rick was the guy who went, oh, I don't know. And they all went, no, hey, come on.
No, come on, pardon me.
Brian has a good line where he goes, I just think it's a song for all guys that don't know how to express themselves. So that they can at least sing that lyric to whoever they harm. Dash their girlfriend or whatever. Laughter. Pat. Yeah, like George Bush could go to North Korea and say, I'm sorry.
Yikes.
And that's the end of that.
That's some strong political commentary. No, that's a good point. It does feel like it was made for the kind of person who would sing a song as a form of, like...
As an apology?
As an emotional connection with an individual.
Yeah, and it's like, for this song and a few others, I feel like it really could have shone through if there was more thing to the song than just, I'm sorry, like, pardon me.
Yeah.
Like, please pardon me. Like, I feel like most good songs are at least two things. At least two thoughts that someone put down on a page. But for this song, it really is just like, I'm sorry.
Yeah. I was bad, I'm sorry. That's what it should have been called.
This is one of those songs where it's like you hear the lyrics and stuff, or just imagine someone saying this to someone else, and you're just sitting there, like, listening to it, like, holy, like, just be cool, man.
Yeah. Just settle down a little bit. But you know what? When you can't settle down, or what might make it difficult to settle down, it's our next song.
Ooh.
We Are All on Drugs.
Oh!
Chaz, you seem sour about this.
I am very
and I
sour.
think I know why.
This was in my top 5. I almost said my top 10. It would be pretty... like, you'd really have to go to your way to not make it into
It was
the
in my top 10 as well. Barely.
I don't know what it is about this song. I know, like, objectively the lyrics are pretty fucking cringy, but every time I hear this, it just gets me going. This was one of the first songs I got into when I started really getting into Weezer, and not just knowing, like, a couple of their, like, hits, like Buddy Holly or Island in the Sun. I know this was still one of their bigger hits, but...
Yeah, it really surprised me when I was doing a little research, and I found out that this was released as not just a single, but the second single. Like, oh, we've got Beverly Hills. Massive hit. What are we going to put out next, guys? We Are All on Drugs. AKA, We Are All in Love.
Yeah.
AKA, We Are All on Hugs. That was a Pat suggestion.
Yeah.
Like I said, Pat, bad.
I think something interesting about this is I've got, like, this promotional CD that they would have sent to radio stations and stuff, and there's a sticker on the front that says, "This is not a pro-drug song." Rivers Cuomo.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, the
But,
band has seemed to be pretty adamant on the fact that they are not advertising drugs.
No,
Yeah.
This
because
song. They don't want you to even think that doing drugs is cool.
no.
I think like just like musically about this song too. Like I really dig the solo and the bridge a lot, and like the intro and everything. I don't know what it is. I think this is a great song. I don't think there's anything like too crazy interesting about it, but
Yeah, I think it's an all right song musically. Again, I do feel like it is a bit. It sounds like a bit of an album cut where like there's not a ton going on musically necessarily. Like it is like a little bit rote. Not that that's a bad thing necessarily, but just that it doesn't do a ton to distinguish itself in a way that like an Island in the Sun might. But yeah, the lyrics are really bad. Sort of like
Like 50% of the lyrics are "We are all on drugs."
That's true, but I mean, I can just read verbatim from the first verse. When you're out with your friends in your new Mercedes Benz and you're on drugs, and you show up late for school because you think you're really cool when you're on drugs.
yeah, that part is not good.
And like it's like, oh, we got to start this song off with some good sounds for the people. What lyrics are we gonna throw out there? And those are the ones that they chose.
That's just kind of another part where I feel like they sort of shove syllables and stuff like when you show up late for school because you think you're really cool. You're not shoving syllables, but it just sounds so off.
Yeah, it does
Also,
not
just
sound
like
like
when you
a
parse
song.
down that logic of, oh, you're showing up to school in a Mercedes Benz because you're on drugs.
But you're late.
Yeah, you show
Yeah,
up late.
like just poking fingers at a high schooler who has a Mercedes Benz. Like, who are you attacking?
It feels like he thinks the message is cooler than it is. Like,
Ooh, I've got a good quote from Rivers on that.
well, from your archived page, because I was reading.
It's
Maybe-
probably like
It
I
could
feel
be
like
the
it's
same
probably-
quote,
Yeah.
but it is talking about him talking about the inspiration for the song. He says he's talking about some kid he's I don't know, not even he saw a kid listening to music. He had a dream about a kid listening to music.
That's that.
And the music sounded so decadent and overstimulating, and I woke up in the midst of that dream in a haze and immediately said to myself, man, we're all on drugs. And I instantly knew that would be a cool song. Like,
That's that quote. Yeah.
yikes.
I think
It's
the whole like Mercedes Benz in school thing though, like maybe not so much where we're from, but definitely like in other cities, especially I feel like potentially in California, like that could be a way more common thing with like filthy rich parents just spoiling their kids.
I guess.
It feels like a first impression of California.
Maybe. I mean, I didn't necessarily so much mean it as in California, but like one of those places where you've got a big city with a lot of rich people.
A lot of famous people.
Yeah, maybe not so much
Yeah.
in a city of like 400,000 people.
Not like anywhere in Idaho or anything.
Yeah.
Brian has some great quotes about albums that he isn't trying to make it sound bad, but the way his choice of words on a page just makes it like.
I know.
The quote from Brian is, "I remember the first time Rivers played it for me, and just felt like, quote, can we do this?" He goes on to say, "I mean, this is a hit song without a doubt, but just the way he phrased, like, I heard Rivers play it for me, and I was like, really?"
Yeah. For me, it's like, I mean, and I do think that the idea of it could actually be a really cool song, if not for the fact that it's so like there's no
It's so simple.
there's no metaphor, there's no subtlety to it. The chorus is, we are all on drugs, give me some of that stuff. And like, just like, oh,
Never get enough.
what can I rhyme in this line? School and cool. Like, I'm really working now. It's just like, it's like, I mean, it's not even a first draft. It's like placeholder like lyrics that you would sing.
Yeah,
And the thing is, even when I'm like writing music and I pull out some placeholder lyrics, I feel like they're still quite a bit better than rhyming cool in school.
Yeah. It's more, you know what it is? It's when you're freestyle rapping And it's like,
Yeah.
but it's like you're not
Your
good
brain
at,
is just lining up the
yeah,
words that
you're not
rhyme.
good at freestyle rapping. It's just like, shit, I need to rhyme two words together. School and cool.
Yeah, for whatever reason, this is reminding me of my professor last year. I would go to her with all these like ideas of what I was going to do for a main research essay, and I would just say something like, "Oh, I want to talk about these people doing this," and she would just go like, "So what do you mean by that?" and make me break it down into separate things. And this song really makes me want to go like, Rivers is going, "Oh, we're all on drugs." It's like, Rivers, what do you mean by that? As soon as you start going, what do you mean by that? I feel like the song would get interesting.
Yeah.
But because he never explains what he means by that, and I've read a few like different quotes around the internet that say, "Oh, they're not talking about drugs; they're talking about just kind of a general
Right.
culture of overstimulation." It's like, well, just put that in the song,
Yeah.
and talk about that.
All
Don't just say,
overstimulated.
I mean, I was just thinking, a song called Overstimulated would be a better song than We Are All on Drugs.
just explore that topic a little tiny bit more than just saying we're all on drugs, man. Like,
Yeah. It really does, like, it sounds like he, like, thought of that phrase and then was just like, and the song's done.
Yeah.
But, again, we spent a lot of time talking, because I do feel like the one thing about these songs, like you said, sometimes on Maladroit and Green, it's just like, yeah, this is a song, like, this is an album cut,
it.
like, there's not much, like, I like it, I think it's okay, I don't like it. Like I said before, the best Weezer, for me,
oh, I thought you were gonna
best
go back
Weezer
to our
is
old
Brian.
bit of. No, I thought you were gonna go back to our old bit of like the
The
worst
worst
Weezer,
Weezer.
is better than the best non-Weezer song.
That too. But, like, I've said it before, I like Weezer. I'd rather them, like, fail in an interesting way than to do averagely well in a boring way. And I feel like, especially Green, is the epitome of doing pretty good in a boring way. And I feel like this, like, I mean, we've already, like,
They definitely
shit
do
on a lot
more
of lyrics in this
interesting
song.
failures than boring passes.
Yeah, exactly. And the songs do a lot to distinguish themselves and, like, are interesting. But let's get to the next track, or should I say the next tracks, because so we're
Do
pretty
we?
famous. We're famous for our
Ooh, don't say
ties
it.
on this show,
Oh, do we have another tie?
where we discuss songs. And we have a little our famous shootouts. But this is an In the Garage first. We have a 3-way tie for 7th place. I mean, 3 sevens, great at a casino.
Ding,
Good
ding,
for
ding.
the podcast? We'll have to see. So I'll list them all and then we can take them
Yeah.
one by one.
We'll have a Mexican standoff with these songs.
In alphabetical order, to be fair, of course. You've got Beverly Hills, The Damage in Your Heart, and Freak Me Out. And, I mean, right away, I've got 2 songs, well, 1.5 songs I want to go to bat for. I want to start by talking about Beverly Hills. Because, I mean, there's so much to say about Beverly Hills.
There's a lot to say about.
For some
Beverly
people,
Hills.
it's like, this is what got me into Weezer. For some people, this is the only Weezer song I know. For some people, this is the song that ruined Weezer.
It really is all of those 3 things.
Yeah.
Like, I can totally see how some hardcore 1994 and on Weezer fans heard Beverly Hills and went, oh, you know what? I'm out.
I meant to bring this up earlier, but there's a very famous Pitchfork review. It's for Green Album. It's written in 2001, and the person is like, I was 10 years old in 1994 when Blum came out. And it's like, is this review being written by a 17-year-old? But, and like is on Pitchfork. This is a very famous review. They gave it a 0.4.
And
And famously,
Isn't that what Camp got? I know Camp has like a
1.6
Oh, okay.
is what Camp got.
Oh wow. Because
So
like
it's
Camp
four-
has
know
always
that
been
off
a
the top of your head.
Yeah, because he has a line.
no. Camp has a
about
famously low.
people that stop
Pitchfork.
texting after 1.6.
Yeah, like
And
it was.
it's also
It was like an
flare
event.
on the Reddit hip hop thread.
Yeah.
It really shits on it. I'll just read this little paragraph to give you the general thesis. It's basically talking about albums that come out by respected bands. It's talking about the different types of bad albums.
Weezer was respected.
Well, yeah, certainly to a certain degree. Often these albums are bombarded with website tomatoes for reasons you can't necessarily hear through speakers. The band changes their sound and image to court a new crossover audience, perhaps, or attempts a mid-career shift into ill-advised territory. Or maybe they start writing songs about Moses in hip-hop slang. But sometimes the bad album in question is none of the above. It doesn't offend anyone's delicate scene politics sensibilities or try to rewrite a once successful formula in unfortunate ways. Sometimes an album is just awful. Make Believe is one of those albums. Like,
Oh, I never read that.
such a brutal. I mean, like, it's
Wow.
hilarious to read, even if you don't agree with it at all. But
I haven't read that review in a very long time. 0.4.
and this is what they wrote about Make Believe. Like I said, even if you completely disagree with their stance, it is a very, very well written and funny review. Basically, it's talking about nostalgia for Weezer, but now there's an antidote to that nostalgic interference. Right from the start of Make Believe, when Weezer lurches into a flaccid take on Joan Jett's I Love Rock and Roll with an unfathomably horrible speak-sing vocal from Rivers Cuomo, bracket, think I like girls who wear Abercrombie and Fitch, you can hear hundreds of critics mouthing no, 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 and going into crumpled shock. What's more disconcerting is that the song gets worse over the course of its 3 minutes. Let's just say Frampton-esque voice box solo and get back to repressing the memory. And it's the album's first single. I mean,
You have to agree with the grievances this article has with that song because this song is the number one single and it is the number one track and it was clearly like the flagship song of this entire era.
and it was the biggest hit of their career, and still is, I
Yeah.
think. Mm-hmm. It has to be. It was the second most downloaded song on iTunes in that year. Do you want to hazard a guess at what number one was?
Wait,
2005?
2005.
is that
I don't-
a Kanye West one?
It's not a Kanye West song. I don't think
like
you'll
he
get
wouldn't have
it.
been that big.
Yeah, actually, that's
like-
true.
It's weird to think he really didn't get that big until like 2010, 2011.
Really?
I want to say like into the
Graduation.
mainstream
Stronger.
pop.
Stronger was
Oh,
the
true,
one that
yeah,
made him
okay.
like huge from what I recall.
But 2005, oh.
Yeah.
Okay, I won't keep you in suspense because I'm almost certain you
Yeah.
won't get it. Hollaback Girl.
Oh, okay.
So Hollaback Girl number one, Weezer number two.
Wow.
I mean, like,
Actually, yeah.
if you're a fan
Weezer
of-
they went on a tour opening for No Doubt at one point.
like if you're a fan of Weezer since day one, and then it's like Weezer is in the same category as Hollaback Girl, it would be kind of jarring. And just whenever a band that was previously like pretty indie, I mean, Weezer was very popular as an indie band, but whenever a band that is sort of outside the mainstream has a lot of mainstream success, I feel like fans can get a little bit
There's always going to be
defensive and
bad blood there.
backlash, yeah.
But man, my main note for this song is like, just tell me this isn't a spit in the face of everything that Blue was about.
What do you mean?
I mean, Blue, like I said, Rivers tried to make it in the late 80s guitar-centric rock scene, said no. So they came out with this very intentional, like nostalgic for the Beach Boys, California, a very pure, very kind of focused pop format. But it was still always very, I don't want to say anti-commercial, because they were still very like apolitical.
Yeah, it was a pop band.
But just the fact that they are now singing like Beverly Hills is where I want to be. Like,
Yeah.
just Blue feels so like, you know what? Like, I'm so unpopular that I'm going to just go off and do my own thing and not care about what anyone else thinks. And for them then to now come up with like, oh, all I want is to be number one in Beverly Hills. Like, the music video is them performing this song at Hugh Hefner's Playboy
Yeah,
Mansion.
the Playboy Mansion.
Famous, with Hugh Hefner in the beginning.
Yeah. But I do think
I love that appearance, actually. I think it works so well.
It works well. I also like Pat's.
Yeah.
Pat just in that beginning is
Yeah.
so funny. Just in the way he gives these very simple lines is, I can't even explain it. It's so funny
Hello.
to me. Just the way,
Pat, it's Hep.
like he's going like,
I hear Weezer has a new record coming out.
and Pat just goes,
That's true.
What do you say you come by the house and play it for the girls?
That sounds fine. Do you mind if I bring some friends?
Whatever you want. Just don't bring too many dudes.
that's true.
I know what you mean. To a certain degree, it's
So the idea of that video, Hep hears about a new Weezer single
and calls
who
Pat.
does he call? He calls Pat. Pat's just sitting there in the fucking robe with the cigar.
doing the pipe puffs like.
Pat's the manager of the band. I get what you mean to a certain degree, but what you're talking about seems more like the thesis of Weezer than it seems like the thesis of Weezer's music. Does that make sense? Like,
No.
like
Walk me through that.
like I think most Weezer songs are about like
Popularity.
to a certain degree, yeah. I mean, like certain songs are like I'm okay with my non-popularity, but there are other songs, and maybe Undone, for example, sort of is like anti-mainstream, like popular kid kind of mentality. But I think I think to a certain degree, wanting to fit in is part of their.
It's always there for sure.
Yeah.
It's always present.
It is worth pointing out that Rivers is on record as saying that these lyrics are not ironic. That he saw, I forget the name of them, but it's basically like the children of one of the Wilson brothers from the Beach Boys, and the mom played in the Mamas and the Papas, something like that. Like the children of two very huge rock stars,
Yeah.
and he basically saw a picture of them and was like, "Hey,
Wow.
what if like it seems pretty easy to live your life like that? Like,
Yeah,
what if that was me?"
I've got a quote from Rivers saying that people are at that point interpreting Beverly Hills as sarcastic, like, "Oh yeah, Beverly Hills," but he's saying no, it's not sarcastic.
No, I
It was a
love
genuine
Beverly Hills.
feeling. And Pat immediately follows that up with, Rick said, "Why don't you have a boom boom chop song?"
I mean, yeah,
It's a we said this a lot in the last episode, but it's a booyah song.
Yeah.
yeah,
It's a very boom, like that's the beat. Dum dum ch.
yeah,
Dum, dum,
and
ch.
it's it's a booyah chop song. But yeah, it is a song that is simultaneously very lazy and also very distinctive. Like they did a good job of making like a big hit record, but it does feel very lazy.
Especially that first verse that goes into the chorus.
It doesn't
where
really rhyme.
Yeah.
Preppy girls never looked at me. Why should they? I ain't got nothing in my pocket. And, and the guitar's just coming like, "Wow," and then they go into Beverly Hills, and it's just like, that feels like just going like, "Fuck it." Like,
Yeah,
here's the chorus.
that is a perfect way to put it. It is like a fuck it song, like, and we're gonna do this now, and fuck it, let's just
like someone looking at their watch, like, time for the chorus. Like,
yeah,
Here we
really
go.
like that transition into it though, with just like the guitar bit.
yeah, like
I always dug
that's
that part.
that's the thing about it, because like it is eminently listenable song, and it is so catchy.
it is
and
one
like,
of my guilty pleasures.
yeah, exactly. It is very much a guilty pleasure song. Like I enjoy it when I hear it, but at the same time, it's like I understand why someone could look at this and be like, "This
Disgusting.
is where Weezer like failed."
Yeah,
Or,
like that. The guitar solo with like kind of like
With the talk box?
Yeah, the talk box thing. That just like it doesn't sit well with me. Same with that like female backing vocal with the gimme gimme.
Is that what
Oh.
she's saying? I wrote down as a note, like, what is she saying? I've heard it so many times, and I feel like the official thing is gimme gimme, but it does not sound like she's saying gimme gimme.
That's true.
Really?
I would agree with that.
Like she's saying like doobie doobie, or
I think I thought it was do it before I found out what it actually was.
Oh really?
it's
See,
it's the ass wide of this song of this album.
I never had that. I always thought that was pretty obvious.
I mean,
Or
it-
another one I thought was Give It To Me.
ooh, that's a good one. It cuts really well into my Weird Al joke version of the song, which is Beverly Hills. That's where I want to pee, and she goes poopy poopy.
Wow.
That's mine.
I don't know if I think Weird Al would probably discard that one, but
You know what I mean.
Weird Al discards it and then Rivers picks it up. Yeah, this is perfect.
I just need to change one line.
I copied the bridge, which I find so funny, because this is them at their most like chest thumpy, like you said, booyah, like so braggadocious, like
Yeah.
like this is what we want to do. And it goes, the truth is, I don't stand a chance. It's something you're born into, and I just don't belong. I'm just a no-class beat-down fool. I'll always be that way. I might as well enjoy my life and watch the stars play.
I mean, it is still Weezer.
It's, yeah, his sense of, like, River's constant sense of inferiority creeps into every single moment that they have, no matter how
He
much...
can't even imagine, like,
He can't even
having
brag.
a good life in Beverly Hills without, like, being like, but it's not going to happen.
Suck.
Yeah, this is a weird one. I
Such a
really,
weird
really
song.
struggled with where to put it. Chaz and I kind of have it right in the middle. Tyler, you have it right at the bottom.
It's my least favorite song.
And I understand...
We were talking about this before. Sorry, but like we were talking about the idea of being a music critic means separating your subjective taste with how you think a song objectively ranks in terms of what new things it brings to the table, how much a musician is doing it something interesting. And I will listen to this song on my own. I will choose to listen to this song. I don't choose to listen to almost all songs off Maladroit or Green. I will play this song because I feel like it, but I still feel objectively it's a pretty terrible song.
Sometimes some of your rankings make me furious. I mean, listen to our Maladroit episode for our dope nose talk. But this is one where I'm fully on board. Like, even though I didn't put it there, I fully see the rationale behind putting it there.
Yeah, I would fully agree with that. Was it you, Chris, who said, like, yeah, this could be, like, my number 4 song, or this could be, like, my least favorite
Yeah, exactly.
song?
It could have been second last, or it could have been fourth. It ended up being somewhere in between.
Yeah, I just feel in terms of whenever most songs try and do a rap rock type thing, like da 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 da, it's like just do anything else.
Yeah. Maybe it's just because of our age, but I can't think of a worse, like, genre
Worse
fad
style.
than, like, new metal and rap rock at that shit.
Oh, speaking in terms of like just weird genres and stuff, like I was at work the other day. I thought the words a reggae cover of the Sweater Song and just how that song would sound just appeared instantly in my head.
Yep. I can hear it. If you want ding to ding ding my Twitter ding ding.
That's it.
Let's move on to the next track in our little shootout, which is "The Damage in Your Heart." This is a song. This is another one I would say it was right in the middle for me. It's an album cut for me. But Tyler, what are your thoughts on this?
I'm going to start by reading some band quotes from that track by track rundown again. This is a song that I find really interesting because as Brian recalls, Rivers made a demo of it and then kind of abandoned it and didn't want to do much more with it. And the rest of the band took that demo, fleshed it out, and then brought it back to him and said, here, this is what we've done with this demo that you kind of dropped.
You're our best friend and we love you.
So Rivers goes on, it's like, I'm super grateful for the way these guys brought this material back to me and forced me to put it on the album because, this is what makes a band and all that.
Yeah, especially for the most part, on this album at least, Rivers writes all the songs, so it is cool that was an element. This song, like I've said on other songs and will say again in the future, it's one where I don't think it's particularly interesting. I like the sort of title / lyric of "The Damage in Your Heart." I think that's a nice turn of phrase. The music is good. Like it's one of those songs. I've said it before. It just sort of like fleshes or like fills out. And I don't want to call it filler, but that's what it is. It fills out the sort of cracks in the album almost.
Yeah, one of my notes is...
I just want to make sure.
Sorry.
I wasn't even asleep there. I was just resting my eyes.
Okay.
How are we supposed to know that? Sorry. Anyway, the Damage in My Heart, the note I have for this is like, this song's the definition of catchy enough. Like this song, like when you say the damage in your heart, I'm like, oh yeah,
The
my
damage in your
Let
heart.
it go. The damage in your... It is, I like the use of guitar harmonics. The way he's kind of picking through that. That's something that it seems like Ruben forced them to experiment on. And Brian stated explicitly that the use of guitar harmonics was not something that he ever really considered. And for this song and songs like Freak Me Out, he never ever like considered using harmonics in a way that is central to the sound of the song. It just like it barely crosses all those thresholds of it's catchy enough. Rivers sounds like he has just enough on his chest that he wants to get off, and it just, you know, it barely edges over that like, yeah, that's a pop song that I'll listen to again.
Yeah, it really is like, oh, like we're gonna make a song, and we made a song, and it's done.
I think this song, it's mostly another one of those kind of like album songs where it kind of, a lot of it kind of just summarizes what the album feels like.
Yeah,
if you kind
exactly.
of threw it all into one. But I think like the guitar part at the intro sort of reminds me of kind of that like late 90s, early 2000s, like fad sort of thing in music, where it kind of sounded like Spanish or something like that.
Like the Macarena?
No, not like that. Like
Smooth?
yeah, like Smooth or like
Okay. Like Buena Vista Social Club?
well, I was gonna say there was that one Backstreet Boys song that kind of had like the finger style guitar in the intro that
Are you thinking of Crimea River?
no, I'm not.
Anyway.
Anyways, enough of that. Who cares? Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely some really good parts in this. Thankfully, this song doesn't really throw any cringy stuff in it that just makes you like wince.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is kind of like
That's a win for this album.
Yeah.
Is like if you get through a song without having to like
Without
double
the
take at a
audience going
lyric.
like, ugh.
Yeah, exactly. Then that's a win.
Yeah, there's that part near the end of the song where they're just saying like I can't tell you a bunch, but he's like kind of going higher. I don't really know how to describe what he's doing, but it reminds me quite a bit of like older like 90s Weezer, and I really dig that part. But I kind of like how this song, it's like the last good song, I think, before the songs kind of start getting like, I think there's like a
Pretty
group
cringe.
of like 4 songs where they just, a lot of them have like a lot of problems with the lyrics, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this is a really solid song. It's a pretty middle of the album song, like
Yeah.
ranking wise, and I guess position on the album. It's pretty right in the middle as well.
Yeah, exactly.
I have as a note that I actually do like the outro, not in that no, because the song's over kind of bit, but like I genuinely do like how the guitars play all these different chords and the drums are like it's kind of a false end every time. Like the guitar's like
Yeah.
da da, and like the guitars move through this whole other chord sequence to end up the song. I really like it. Super pretty.
So, not a very controversial song.
No.
It's interesting that this is in a shootout with Beverly Hills, obviously a very polarizing song. And then this song, Freak Me Out. I had this near the top of my list, so maybe I'll start off. I don't know what it is I like about this song. A big part of it is the instrumentation, the opening guitar line. I mean, the guitar tone through this entire album I really, really enjoy, and I
Very
think that's
clean.
a big
Yeah.
part of what I like about it. But this song especially, like, just that first note. I mean, obviously, I can't replicate it with my voice, but it just sounds really cool and like
Very
it.
spacey.
Yeah,
very
it
new
it
age.
is very atmospheric. It really makes you think of walking down a random street at night at like 2 a.m. and there's no one else on
Yeah.
the street, and it feels like what the song is about, which I
You-
feel like is a cool execution of that. Like, I mean, it really puts you in the headspace of you're just walking along and then some person shows up.
Do you know what it makes me think of?
What?
Even without you in the picture, it makes me think of you too. So that makes sense to me that
Yeah.
you really like it because I know you really like you too.
I do love
I-
you too.
And
now
that's
that
interesting.
you say that, I kind of get some U2 vibes off
Just
that.
super duper atmospheric, super spacey, especially the
Yeah.
guitar doing the harmonics things. And just knowing that this, I wrote down, this sounds like a song that Ruben really pushed the band into making. Like they were kind of
like
like,
that.
oh, I don't know the whole way. And he was like, no, like really pursue this idea. And like I said before, like Brian has a few notes that he never really thought of using harmonics in the way that Ruben pushed them to use.
Yeah.
So that obviously got me thinking, oh, Ruben and U2. And I looked it up, and Rick Rubin and U2 have not really done that much together, which I totally thought they would have.
No, yeah, they did work together.
But they shelved a bunch of material
Exactly,
for
yeah. It
New
was
Line on the
around
Horizon, right?
Yeah, around that era. Yeah, there's just a little bit of release stuff. I think there's a song called "Windows in the Sky" or something like that. But yeah, that's exactly right. They worked with him. I think it's because, well, maybe I'm wrong because they worked with Brian Eno a bunch. But I feel like late period U2 is like they don't want to be pushed.
Yeah.
They want to
got
do
their
their own
lane.
thing. They want to take like 5 years to make an album.
Yeah.
Thanks, chime in with the yawn.
I've got some great quotes from the band on this song. Scott
No, go ahead.
Scott Schreiner says, "It reminds me of the apartment that Rivers had above the Sunset Strip, comma, with like a yoga mat, a spoon, a bowl, a bar of soap, and a towel." Because Rivers, Rick Rubin got him into meditation, so I feel like he really was in a creative headspace here. And he totally seems like the kind of guy who would have a completely empty apartment in Los Angeles around this time.
Even around this time, I think it was 2005, there's a magazine, I forget which one, just on the, it was a music magazine, obviously. What other magazine would talk about Weezer, right?
True. Fashion magazine.
Yeah, I don't know, man. But even that just kind of like reminded me of this thing I read, and it was just on the cover of it. It was like talking about kind of this era Weezer, like 2005, and it just says Rivers Cuomo hasn't had sex in over 2 years.
Oh, right. Isn't this around the time of his vow of celibacy?
I'm not familiar with that, actually.
I feel like I read somewhere, probably on Wikipedia, that he like took a vow of celibacy from 1 year to another.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And it was like a while where like he was like single and actively said like, no, I'm not gonna have
no
sex.
mingling.
Yeah.
But yeah, another thing, the lyrics of this song, I know you have one very specific bone to pick, Chaz, but in general, I'm of two minds about the lyrics. I think for some reason it seems like Weezer hates like subtext and metaphor. So I think I remember reading something about this is years ago, where someone was like, oh, what does Freak Me Out about? And it's like, well, they said that the song was written about a spider. And
Brian maintains that this song is about a spider.
And also just like, I feel like I've heard other sort of Q&A type stuff where it's like, yeah, like it's about some guy who freaked me out. Which, it just... And it's like, maybe I'm just ascribing too much like value to Weezer's songwriting abilities, but I feel like if you take this song from the perspective of like a fan base, especially when like a fan base like Weezer's, where they had
they're very active on
a connection, such a like
but like Rivers himself
connection.
is posting like they have a very close connection to the band.
Yeah, exactly. So when you read the chorus in that way, like, man, you really freak me out. I'm so afraid of you. And when I lose my cool, I don't know what to do. I know you don't mean no harm. You're just doing your thing. But man, you really freak me out. I think when you contextualize it in that way, it's a really cool chorus. And, like, the lyrics are really, like, interesting.
As in being about the fans? Or?
Yeah, exactly. Like, the idea, it's like...
It's a complicated relationship.
Exactly. Like you sort of react in, like, a bad way to stuff sometimes, and that sort of goes back to gay.
Yeah.
And also it's like, oh, like, I know you're a fan of mine, and so, like, your intentions are good when you say, when, like, it's like, oh, like, you want the music to be good too, but also, inevitably, it fucks with me when you, like, when I go to you and you critique all my things. I want to think that it's a reflection on, like, that sort of process and on making Maladroit, but then they insist it's about a fucking spider, and so I have to be like, okay, this is fucking stupid then.
The one line of, can I buy you a drink, makes me really hope it's not about a spider.
Objectively not a spider.
That would be the stupidest thing ever. That angle really makes me appreciate the lines that formerly made me cringe, where he goes, I'm going to try to improve my manners. everyone, yes, everyone is my friend.
And
From that,
Chaz,
like, if that's about a spider, that's fucking dumb. But if it's about the fans, that makes a lot of sense because Rivers is the one going on to forums going, no, shut up, Blue sucks. So him going, I'm going to try to improve my manners means much more. And going, everyone is my friend. That gains a lot more meaning.
It gives it more meaning, but I don't think it makes it any less horrible.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is that is still at the end of the day that is still
be objectively garbage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, generally I like the chorus in that perspective, but I agree that those specific lines, well, it's better. I don't know if it's good.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't really talked about this one too much, but I've definitely got some thoughts on it. I think obviously it's a really cool song. I had it a lot higher in my list, like in my head initially, but I always forget about that part. Like, I'm going to try to improve my manners and everyone, yes, everyone and my friend. And then every time that comes around, I'm like, holy shit, man. Like, it's every time that just drops it by so much.
Those are just not good lyrics.
Aside from that, I really do enjoy the song, and I'm definitely on Chris's side with this of it being a really good song. But that part just tanks the whole song for me. And just like, I don't know, at this point you're expecting those kind of lyrics from Rivers, but it's just then when Brian comes and sing up the backup vocals, I'm just kind of left there thinking like, oh, come on, Brian, like, have some backbone, like, tell Rivers, no, I won't do this.
Say no. I mean, even if everything you say is true, I still kind of agree with Chris that I would so much rather see Weezer try something very new and very different out.
Of course.
And even if this song is them tripping and falling flat on their face, it's something very, very like...
No, don't get me wrong. I still think this is a great song. Just that one part is so bad.
Brian said it's
like,
probably the most un-Weezer-like track that's ever been put on an album. And I would have to agree with that, even
Up
now.
until that point, yeah, probably. Well, I don't know. There's some points on Well, I guess at least with Maladroit...
I'd say Freak Me Out is probably the most un-Weezer-like.
I'd agree with that.
Like, Death and Destruction is weird, but it's still, like...
Are you talking
four
about...
guys jamming it out.
Yeah.
Freak Me Out is very, very spacey, atmospheric.
Yeah, I don't even know what band I would compare it to.
Well, an interesting thing about Freak Me Out is they've never played that song live before. It's one of the few songs of theirs they've never done live.
Yeah, don't they? I think they hate this song.
I don't know if they hate it, but I don't know.
I'll look into that.
I just don't... It might just be that, like, the song doesn't work well live.
In this track by track, they agreed that Rivers had a demo that sounded very, very new agey and spaced out, and they weren't really sure what to do with it until Pat started drumming, and just, you know, this is an idea that I can agree with. When you hear a very wild and spaced out song, it's very difficult to fit into your head, and when you hear a drummer just going like counting out the beats behind it, you know, it becomes a lot easier to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
So that makes a lot of sense for me that they heard that the idea of these harmonics being picked out and were like, what? And then heard Pat drumming over top of it and went like, oh, I understand now.
Ooh, hey, I found I was referencing years ago how I heard some thing about Freak Me Out, and I found it just by chance. It's from Eating the Dinosaur by Chuck Klosterman, who, if you don't know him, he is a really cool writer who writes about pop culture. He has a lot of books, but
is he on AV Club or no?
I don't think so. He's been around for a long time.
Okay, right.
He's like a very well respected pop culture writer, and Eating the Dinosaur is a great book. It's a collection of essays, and he has a really cool essay which I had completely forgotten about up to this point about Weezer. In this really cool essay about Weezer, he talks about, I'll just read verbatim. In 2006, I delivered a lecture at Boston University, and a person in the audience wanted to know what I thought of the Weezer album Make Believe. This man, for whatever reason, was extremely upset about it. Is Rivers trying to fuck with us? He asked. That album contains 3 of the worst songs ever recorded. I mentioned that there were at least 3 songs on the album I liked. Beverly Hills, We Are All on Drugs, and Freak Me Out. The man in the audience immediately lost his mind. Those are the 3 songs I was referring to, he exclaimed. They're terrible. It almost feels like he's trying to make fun of me for buying his music. And then a little later on, this is, it's funny that, because I completely forgot that this essay existed, and they basically summed up everything I'm saying about this song. So maybe that's why I subconsciously really like it. This is what the question asker in Boston did not understand. He could not fathom that a person he believed to be working for him had never considered his needs at all. When he listened to a song about the desire to possess a swimming pool in Beverly Hills, it seemed to be the opposite of what he identified as his own desires. He thought it must be cheap sarcasm. When he listened to We Are All on Drugs, it seemed like Cuomo was making a joke that did not have a punchline. In truth, there isn't even a joke. Blah, blah, blah. Freak Me Out struck him as the single stupidest moment on the album, particularly since the band started claiming in interviews that the lyrics were about Rivers being frightened by a spider. To the question asker, this explanation made sense. Of course it had to have an inherently facile meaning, except it clearly does not. Go on the internet and read the lyrics. They are amazingly self-evident. It's not about a spider. It's a song about Cuomo walking down the street at night, only to have some random bozo jump in his face and say, "Hey, you're the guy from Weezer. Your band kicks ass, but your albums disappoint me. Can I take your picture with my cell phone?" The song is called Freak Me Out because it's about being freaked out and then feeling guilty about your own reaction. The question asker from Boston hated Freak Me Out because it did not match any feeling he'd ever had. This is because the Inquisitor has absolutely nothing in common with the protagonist who wrote the song. He's not like Rivers Cuomo. He is more like the weirdo in the shadow.
I mean, we'll get into this with a few other songs that I have some notes for, but I feel that at its best, this album has a lot of feelings about other feelings, which I'm always a sucker for, like lyrically exploring that idea of like you have a feeling and then you have a bunch of other feelings tied to that feeling.
Right.
That come rushing
You
out.
feel something about the way, like about having those emotions.
And you just kind of get sucked in this whirlpool of feelings about feelings about feelings about feelings, which I am just always there for. I really like that, and it reminds me of this quote about Led Zeppelin from this music critic that I can't remember his name, but Led Zeppelin keeps coming out with albums, and critics keep hating them, and everyone else keeps loving them. And he said, like, to me, it communicates this idea that like critics and the mainstream have two tastes in music which are becoming almost entirely separate, where critics are like what critics are listening to and talking about has absolutely nothing to do with what everyday people are listening to and talking about.
I think that what he's talking about becomes sort of more of a thing as it goes on, where it's like, I mean, I think that sort of is the idea of the essay, which is an awesome essay. I'm glad I rediscovered it just now.
I'm glad I heard it.
And everyone should read that whole book, really, because there's a lot of good stuff in there. Rivers Cuomo writes very personal songs about his life. And his life is, he is a big rock star. And so, as his life becomes less like the people listening, his music becomes less relatable.
Yeah.
And so they like his stuff less.
Yeah, and I mean, I was talking about this earlier today with Chaz. Like, I released this album, and it was a huge moment for me. I felt like I got a lot of, like, personal demons out of me. I felt like I had a load off my back, and one of the first pieces of feedback I got from anyone was this stranger who just anonymously messaged me and went, "Hey, I love your album, can't wait for the next one." And that freaked me out on my own, because like I just spent a year working on this. Like, it's gonna be a long time before I come out with anything, like any sort of serious project.
Yeah.
And like that's just my experience with like I can't imagine the emotional reaction you must have to having like hundreds of thousands or even millions of people having their own reactions to your music.
Whew.
That's a lot of talk for.
Love a good deep dive on Freak Me Out. But it's come down to this. We're in the shootout phase, so...
Do we really have to shoot out 3 separate songs?
So here's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking we do this sort of in a gauntlet style. So what I'm going to do is we'll put the first 2 songs against each other, then the loser will face the third song, and then the winner of that makes no sense. Oh wait, that makes no fucking sense.
Let's flip a coin.
I don't know if I like that.
You're so sleepy.
I'm a little tired. But like, are we still talking about
Freak me out.
Yeah, we talked about it for so fucking long. I
No,
read
I
like
know.
2
We've
paragraphs.
already
of a
been rolling
long-ass
for like
essay.
an hour and a half.
Yeah.
I haven't like, I was like awake while we were talking about that and like chiming in when I felt like it was necessary, but I didn't
You
really.
fell asleep and
No,
woke
yeah,
up and
Chris
we were
and I had a
still talking
long
about it.
talk.
I wouldn't say I really fell asleep. I just kind of zoned out.
Yeah, no,
I was
I know.
like,
Yeah.
I just gotta sit up more.
Okay, what if I just Googled
Which song
How-
is the best?
tiebreaker between 3 things?
Ooh.
I think that could yield some interesting results.
I mean, if the winner is Beverly Hills, I will contest it.
I will contest.
We should use the same. We should use the NFL playoffs tie-breaking procedures.
Which is
First criteria: the division champion with the best record.
Well,
So what's the equivalent? Okay.
what song, like,
what are we talking about?
can we look at, like, which song is ranked, like, the lowest between the 3 of us? Like, which,
yeah, that's what I was kind of thinking
who
too.
has, not, I don't know.
Which
like,
individual, which is the lowest ranked on one of our 3 lists?
Yeah.
Is what you're saying. So that would be Freak Me Out because it is second last on your list.
But Beverly
So-
Hills is the bottom on mine.
Oh, that's true. I didn't
The
see
very
that.
bottom.
We're gonna do Beverly Hills versus Freak Me Out because those are the 2 lowest. Because you had Beverly Hills last, and Chaz, you had Freak Me Out at second last, and the winner will face Damage in Your Heart, and that will be our ranking.
yeah,
Agreed?
I think that's a fair assessment.
All right.
Okay. Beverly Hills, Freak Me Out. Beverly Hills, I love you, but after that,
But you're just no good.
that little chat we had caused me to like Freak Me Out even more than I already did, and I really like Freak Me Out, so I'm gonna go with Freak Me Out.
I will go Freak Me Out as well.
I mean, it doesn't matter, but I would go with Beverly Hills personally, even though I think Freak Me Out is definitely a more interesting song. It's just that one bridge part.
Really?
That part, oh.
Like I said, there are individual lyrics that can tank a song on this album, so it's not unreasonable for you to say that. Freak Me Out versus Damage in Your Heart.
Ooh, this is more difficult.
I'm sticking with Freak Me Out, personally. Chaz, let's go to you.
I would have to go with the Damage in Your Heart.
I would have to go with Damage in Your Heart as well.
Okay.
I have it ranked 1 higher than Freak Me Out.
And you also flipped them in the course
I
of making
did. I
this
changed my
list.
mind. Also, I'm very, very fresh to this album, so I don't really feel beholden to the list that I submitted.
Yeah, I mean, I think you'll come around the Green Day special, but for now, we've got our ranking. It's at the bottom, Beverly Hills, Freak Me Out, then Damage in Your Heart. We're finally through with that.
I slept through half of it and it
Yeah.
still seemed like an eternity.
Take a quick break. We'll be right back with more In the Garage.
I'm thinking I'm going to put the Freak Me Out intro as this little interlude. And then back.
City streets at night can be so.
I did cocaine during the break.
Nice.
Well, I'll just wanted to rip a few lines. That's the main thing.
Okay, it's gonna go too. That's nice. Welcome back to In the Garage. We're talking make believe. If you've made it to this point, thank you. Thank you for sticking through. We shockingly are just barely halfway through. Now that we've gotten that 3-way shootout out of the way, we're done with ties for this week, and we can move on to some other tracks. So the next song on our list, I would call it an album-y boy. It's The Other Way. What do we think about this one? I feel like it's a peppy one. It's upbeat. It's fun. I kind of feel like it wouldn't sound out of place on the White Album.
Ooh,
Is that fair
yeah.
to say?
No, it definitely has
No,
that tone.
it's not fair to say.
Oh, sorry. I thought you said, is that weird to say?
Hey, it's okay. We're all friends here.
This song is interesting because Rivers wrote it for Jennifer Chiba, Elliott Smith's girlfriend. He wrote it for Elliott Smith's girlfriend. She had dated Rivers Cuomo, apparently, if you can believe it.
I can't.
So he wanted to console her after Elliott Smith's death. So he obviously had second givings about his own motives. And this song is about that, obviously, where he feels part of himself is going to turn and look the other way no matter how much in pain someone from his past might be in.
I mean, no spoilers, but just kind of looking at the way we've ranked the songs, I feel like it's generally delineated based on how emotional they get. Because like I feel like all these songs are pretty good musically. All these songs, for the most part, kind of have their ups and downs lyrically. And so I feel like, in general, the songs that are sort of upper half songs are songs where they're able to get across and sort of where that trying to be more emotional or be more vulnerable kind of pays off. And I feel like touching on that kind of subject matter is part of what makes this song work.
Mm-hmm.
Chaz, what are you thinking?
About the song or about what you just said?
Well, just what's going through your head right now, and then give me your thoughts on the song.
I think it's a great song. I really do enjoy it. I think it's pretty, like you said, the more album cut off this one. It seems like pretty basic. I don't want to say filler because all the stuff on here is pretty good. But I think part of it falls into the same category as I said with like, say, Freak Me Out or Pardon Me or My Best Friend. Kind of in the way where I don't really see it as a fully like well done song. I see it as kind of just like has good bones, but they just kind of rushed it and threw it together.
I can see that.
I think it's just lacking for me in some ways. I mean, I'm talking a lot of shit about it, but I think I feel like a lot of the songs I've ranked lower on all these albums, I just rip them apart and I'm like, oh, it's a really good song though, I love it. This one really falls into that, although I think this is better than a couple of the other ones we've talked about so far.
Do you feel like you would like it more if the instrumentation was a bit more fleshed out? Because this is one of those songs I feel that is very
it's
a little
just
too
like
stripped back.
just driving power chordy kind of sound.
If there were
Yeah.
one or two synths in there, I think that would do a lot for that song.
I think it would too. I mean, there's like some parts in it that kind of don't sit well for me. Not to the extent that I'm going to try to improve my manners part from Freak Me Out. I think that has to be in my
really,
opinion,
really stuck in your craw.
yeah, that Weezer's lowest point
Wow.
until this album. That part at least, but yeah, we've talked enough about Freak Me Out for now, though.
If you really think so. Yeah, I feel like generally all of these songs, I mean, we've said it a bunch of times, but I feel like all of these songs like are there musically. Like, I feel like your average album cut from this album does a lot more to distinguish itself than a Maladroit album cut does or a Green album cut does.
For sure.
So I feel like the thing that takes it from being like a good song or an okay song that kind of needs some work is like just sort of like a special something. Like I feel like like all these songs, like you said, like they have good bones, like they have a pretty strong foundation, and it's just the taking that sort of next step to become a really good song on this album. Is that fair to say?
I think so. Another thing I really do enjoy about this song, though, is the way they use Brian and Scott's vocals in it.
Mm-hmm.
As like the kind of backing vocals where they sing the higher like other way part.
Yeah, the harmonies on the chorus are like some of the strongest on this album, which is sort of notably lacking in the harmonies department.
One of my notes is great use of Brian's vocals,
Yeah.
which he's perpetually just in the back of the room
We're just
trying to reach that mic.
we're just loving Brian from his utility closet where he records his vocals.
He literally phoned them in. Lyrically, I'm a sucker for. He really gets across this idea of having feelings about
Emotion
feelings.
about an emotion, like you said earlier.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Another dimension.
Because he really wants to help this girl, but he's going like, you know, if I do try and help her, how does that come across? He's got many fears about rejection. He's got many fears about this and that. And just emotional turmoil.
Hey, he's
I'm
got a
always there.
number of irrational fears. They would like
What's
to
this
share
now?
with you. It's from Falling for You.
I think this song really does have some very emotional lyrics at parts, and then at other parts the lyrics kind of fall short. I think that's the same way I feel about Freak Me Out as well. Like, aside from the part that's like so bad, the rest of the lyrics I think are fine.
Everyone
They're
is my
pretty
friend.
good.
Actually, no.
Don't get me started, Tyler. I refrained from going on a rant about that. Let you guys go on your positive rants.
I really have specific notes for the way Weezer plays the instruments, but I think the song would have done quite a bit better with a slightly different drum beat. I feel like Pat's doing that like 1 2 1 2.
Yeah.
But if it was almost like that kind of swing style that's more on songs like Dog Days Are Over, when I play the song in my head, my mind automatically fails in like,
Yeah, sort of more syncopated.
yeah.
That's interesting. I'm thinking about it now, which is good audio. It's interesting as far as, these sort of middle cuts go, but overall, just a solid piece.
Just far outshone by other songs.
Yeah,
on
just
the
a
track
good
list.
role player overall, I would say. Up next, we have another song that also I'd say fits in that category, which is Peace. Do we have any thoughts on Peace, both as a concept and as a Weezer song?
Thumbs down.
For which one?
All of it.
Both?
Thumbs up on the song, thumbs down on just the whole idea.
Yeah, this is a weird one. I feel like when you first hear it, it can kind of be 50-50, especially like when going into a song called Peace. I feel like your expectations are automatically like 40% lower than they otherwise would be. I actually had this second last on my list, and then when I was sort of giving it a once over, making sure that everything was in the right place, I ended up moving it up like 5 positions.
Wow.
So like I feel like it's a song where you don't really think about it. It doesn't really like leave a lasting impression, but then you listen to it and you're like, this is a really good song. Like the riff is memorable. I
Yeah.
dig the chorus. I think it's just like
got a great
even
groove.
even more than any of these other sort of albumy cuts, it is just like a workhorse. Like it's not catchy, I wouldn't say. It's not super unique. It's just like it just executes well on its ideas, I'd say.
I think it's a pretty solid like standalone track. I agree with you that it's more of an album cut. Like I've got it even written in my notes that this is probably like the generic track of the album.
Yeah, exactly.
But I put it in my top half of the album. I think it's got a lot of really good parts to it. I don't think there's anything like crazy spectacular about it, like some of the ones we're gonna talk about. But I don't really have much negative to say about this. I mean, there's like no cringy parts in it that just kind of make you wanna blow your brains out.
Yeah, like you would, like I said, like you'd think a song called Peace
Exactly.
would
Would be
have
far more
like,
cringe, yeah.
such
Yeah.
a cringy.
What's
like,
that
I mean, like,
one off like Ratitude or whatever, like Love Is the Answer or whatever?
that sounds right. I'm
my
not
Yeah.
intimately familiar with Ratitude.
I'm not either, but every time I put that album on and that song comes on, I'm like, holy shit, just like, I don't know.
I don't
it's
like
Yeah.
this.
It sounds like the
I'm
most,
sure we'll
like,
get to that feeling.
hippie garbage ever. But no, for a track called Peace, I think it's very solid. Talking about not the concept of like, oh, let's
Yeah,
all
it's not
work
about
Speaking
world
about
together
peace.
and
inner
like
peace, yeah.
let's all work together to achieve something great, or like
Yeah.
I like the part where it's like whoa or whatever.
I like
After
when you
the-
sing this.
Yeah, it's like I start to do it and I'm like, oh, I should probably add some of the tune to it. I'm like, oh, but I can't sing, so it ends up just me starting to say it, then trying to sing it, then abandoning it about halfway.
Peace, one of my notes is this reminds me again of the fact that even though Rivers is getting stuff off his chest, it doesn't necessarily make it a better song. I got this
Yeah.
whole quote from him. Quote, "This song was written at a time of no peace with me. When I was at the end of my rope, I felt like life had no meaning anymore. I was going out every night and trying to have fun, but it wasn't giving me any real satisfaction. I just started thinking, I gotta find a way to bring meaning back into my life and recover my sensitivity and creativity, and I want to find some peace.
Yeah, it's
Pretty
it's another
relatable.
song. I can't remember which song we said this about before, but maybe Pardon Me, where it's clear that it maybe has more personal weight to him, as like, since obviously he's writing songs about himself and his own feelings, that it maybe carries a bit more weight in his own life than it necessarily does like sort of connecting with the audience.
Yeah. And again, it's a fine song, but it has a bit of a Dear Diary quality without much of anything else.
What do you mean by that?
It's just, Dear Diary, like I felt sad today. I don't necessarily want to read someone else's diary and see, 3 days in a row where they were super sad.
What about the Pinkerton Diaries?
Well, I feel this band is the one where we can't move on from these first two albums because they have always just been defined by those albums, whether they're embracing them or shying away from them.
What we really should do is find someone who's never heard anything by Weezer before and show them all of Weezer except for
At
Blue
once.
and Pinkerton.
Now this I like.
It was one of those fucked up social experiments, like from the 19th century, like raised kids in barrels.
What? Is that a thing? Was it Donkey Kong?
No, okay, sorry. That was like a thought experiment, but they're like,
Oh, like
They're-
sort of like sensory deprivation, like,
Yeah.
or just not exposing them to anything.
like cats, like if you like tape their eyes shut and then it's bad. Like if you tape like a little kitten's eyes shut, and then when you open them, and you take the tape off when they're fully grown, they are all messed up. They can't.
I can't imagine why that would be. I can't imagine how being forcefully blinded.
So
for,
many psych experiments
your
are like we
childhood.
tortured them to see if they would like it, and
Yeah,
they don't.
true. And the government is still doing it to us. And by the way, please check out our conspiracy theories podcast that's coming out soon.
It's called.
where we invent our own conspiracy theories. It's
I think you mean reveal the conspiracies you've never heard before.
yeah, that too, and that's the only thing. Also, it's called Out of the Garage and Into the World.
In the garage with our tinfoil hats.
In the bunker. But yeah, one thing that I think this song lacks, especially when you look at like a blue.
Forgot we were talking about a song.
Yeah, this podcast is about Weezer. But yeah, one thing, like, especially when you look back at like really any Blue or Pinkerton song, the one thing that really makes them stand out from a lyrics perspective is the specificity.
Yeah.
So, yep, I mean, obviously a song like Say It Ain't So is super personal, but even say Undone, which generally, like, sort of lyrically is a bit more ambiguous, but it does a really good job of painting a very specific scene. And I feel like pretty much all the songs on Blue and Pinkerton do a very good job of sort of evoking,
Painting a very clear picture.
exactly, like you can see something in your mind when you hear the song. And I feel like this song, I mean, obviously it's about sort of his personal life, but we don't really get much of a glimpse into sort of what's going on. Like, he's just saying, oh, I have all these problems and it's making it hard for me and I want to find some peace. And it's like, yeah, that's a message I can get behind. I have problems and I want peace from them, but it does, like,
We wish you would be a bit more creative about it.
yeah, and yeah, it just doesn't feel like there's a lot to latch on to, and that's what sort of relegates it to being just an album track.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so maybe the top 3 is where it really starts to kick it up, but I feel like we're in really good territory right now. Like,
Okay.
I feel like
Yeah.
the top of this album is, I would say, pretty easily my, like, sort of the top 4 or top 3 is easily my favorite of the 3 post Pinkertons that we've reviewed so far. So,
The top 4 on this album is great for me.
and fortunately, we've returned to the idea of Weezer having a good closing track. I don't think we've had it since Blue Album,
Ooh.
but it's back with Haunt You Every Day. As we mentioned earlier, this was Rick Rubin challenging Rivers to write an Elton John or Billy Joel-esque song. He wrote this entirely on the piano.
The first song that he wrote entirely on piano.
Exactly. And it you can tell because it does feature the piano very heavily. It's what distinguishes it from other tracks on the album.
For me, this song is my number 3 song. I kind of had to fight between that and Hold Me for
Yeah, you definitely you had it above the two of us. I think we both kind of had it in the middle, but upon listening to it a little more, I can pretty fully see where you're coming from here.
Yeah, I mean, just like, I think the intro is so good. The whole song is great. I'm really glad that they didn't screw up the lyrics. I remember listening to this album a bunch in preparation for this podcast, and there's like a few songs on here that I didn't remember quite as well as I thought I did. And then it got to this one, I'm like, oh, is this another one of those ones towards the end where like the lyrics get so bad they make me want to like do some wacky things?
I am kind of curious about these lyrics because I understand that obviously I'm going to haunt you every day, but
You're wondering if he actually killed someone?
I just find it crazy that he goes, I'm going to kill when I need a thrill. Lines
Yeah.
like that are just like, whoa, Rivers,
Gets-
this is territory that I've never heard from him before.
Yeah, it's a real John Mayer type situation. Because we're getting into some heavier things. His second studio album.
I'm a really big fan of his first one, but I kind of fell off.
Room for
after
Squares?
that. Room for Squares, I love
God,
that
you
album.
gotta get on Continuum. The blues.
That's the one with Gravity, right?
Yeah. The blues influences on that. I mean, I'll play you guys a track later.
I hate
and obviously,
blues so much.
when we can. What? You hate blues?
I hate blues.
What the fuck? Well, I mean, obviously we'll discuss all this when we do our John Mayer podcast, where we
Yeah.
go through all of his albums.
Ooh, what would we call our John Mayer
In the
podcast?
Wonderland.
Room for Squares.
Yeah, I was thinking Room of Squares.
It's more like a room of triangles. That's a joke that people who have been in Chaz's room will understand.
Holy fuck.
I'm going to cut that out.
No, please don't. I need the motivation to repaint this room. The embarrassment from this podcast will...
Listeners, chime in. Should Chaz paint his room or not?
And what colors?
Vote on the color now.
I'm going to paint it
Please go to our
white.
Twitter poll.
Or
but-
potentially the color that it currently is minus the fucked up, like, gross green stripes.
Haunt you every day. Let's not do this track a disservice by not discussing it as much as it deserves. What?
Oh, this is such a great track. It's going to talk about the paint on the walls.
Yeah, I'm gonna talk about watching paint dry. Honestly, maybe it's the piano that is sort of bringing out this emotion, because it seems like when Rivers gets on the piano, he tends to pour his heart out. Mm-hmm. You got your Longtime Sunshine, other songs, I have to assume.
I Love the USA.
Yeah,
Sure.
it's a good
The
one.
theme song to
Some-
American Dad.
I was just saying I Love the USA.
Oh, okay.
There was definitely some songs off Alone that had a decent amount of piano in them that I felt like he really poured it into as well. One of the more negative things I have to say about this song, and I would hardly call it a negative
It's a nitpick.
criticism, but it kind of does feel like a song from 2005.
Yeah, I forgot to say this about Peace, but so many of these songs towards like the back half are super just 2005-y.
You think so?
I just think of kind of operatic, just like bombastic in a very slick back way.
I feel like there's like a lot of qualities in the production,
Yeah.
and like the arrangement of it as well.
Yeah, I guess like when did Sam's Town by the Killers come out? Was that this year?
2006, I want to say.
That's right, 2006. Yeah, that's I guess that's sort of the same idea as like really like going for it. There are definitely some strings on this album, right?
On
I
what,
can't-
Sam's Town? Or?
No, on Make Believe. There's definitely strings on Sam's Town.
Don't really
I
think,
think-
so.
Yeah, let me... Where?
I can't
In
place
terms
it,
of
but I'm pretty sure there is at least one song that has strings on it.
I have a good instrumentation story when we get to another song higher up on the list.
Oh, interesting. But yeah, I do know what you mean. That sort of
Melodramaticness.
or just symphonic.
Yeah.
Like every album
That's
is
a
kind
good
of
word.
trying to be Abbey Road a little bit. That's how I feel
Yeah.
about Sam's Town mainly. I guess
I think something I really like about this song, and probably the reason I put it right next to Hold Me in my ranking, is I think the transition that goes from the verse into the chorus, how it's just super powerful. It reminds me of more like,
so. I'm looking at this Billboard year-end 2005 kind of thing, and the top rock album listed is American Idiot by Green Day, which pretty much proves our theory.
yeah, the transition from the more quiet, like mellow verse into the big, like huge chorus on this song and Hold Me makes me, it almost reminds me of something off of the Blue album, even though I can't really think of a song that it would remind me of.
I feel like these vocal melodies kind of suffer from being a little too simplistic.
I think even if you think the vocal melodies suffer from being a little too simplistic, this song really brings it together in the chorus with that lead guitar underneath the chorus, like underneath the vocal melody, almost soloing, and then playing the kind of like screechy bend parts. I don't know how to describe it. You know, when you
He's
like,
soloing, yeah.
you play like the two different strings, then you bend the one string up so that they end up hitting the same note. You know what I'm talking about.
I do know what you're talking about. I don't remember what it's called.
I don't know. Kiss used it a lot, I think.
Oh, nice. Sorry.
Have we had an Ace Frehley reference yet in this episode?
We have now.
Perfect.
I actually really agree with you on your point about like big choruses. I mean, they have had, I'd say, their fair share of big choruses, but not necessarily ones that sort of feel like you said, like they're playing to like the upper deck of an arena. You know?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, like songs like, I don't know, Dope Nose or Buddy Holly or Good Life or something, like they feel very much rooted in sort of like playing in clubs, playing in smaller venues, like sort of more alternative venues, whereas this really feels like in its instrumentation and it's just having that big sound that it's
Much more
reaching for
grandiose.
that. Yeah.
I forgot this would be just around when Coldplay was coming up too, and
Yeah,
really
that's-
brought that big
that was another-
arena rock.
Yeah, so
Sound back.
so I'll read you some of the big rock albums from that year. So, like I said, American Idiot by Green Day, definitely you can hear a bit of that kind of influence in there. How to Dismantle an Atomic Bomb by U2. So you had like Vertigo,
Classic.
X and Y by Coldplay, Hot Fuss,
Wait, Hot Fuss was 2004, was it not?
But it was still selling.
but it was charting, I'm guessing.
Oh.
It
I'm
was
pretty sure it's
okay.
probably a
still.
late bloomer.
Mr. Brightside has. I think that's one of those songs that's been on the chart, like a chart for.
Yeah,
The
it
whole
was a thing
time.
that like every year since it came out, it has charted at least once in the UK.
Really?
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it?
That is.
I'm pretty interesting, aren't I? But yeah, overall, great song.
Thumbs up.
Love the emotion.
For sure. For sure.
I-
Especially as an album closer. I know you talked about that at the beginning, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I feel like that needs to be reiterated.
Their basic songs, for the most part, are about heartbreak. And on this album, they really try to branch out for that. I mean, I'm just looking at the list of songs we have, like Beverly Hills, Freak Me Out, We Are All on Drugs, My Best Friend. Not a lot of love songs, really. Mostly either sort of tackling one very specific thing.
A lot of
or-
personal issues.
Yeah, exactly. Or looking more internally. But this very much is like a
Or
lost
Beverly
love.
Hills.
Yeah, or looking at some hills and saying that you want to be there. Give me, I believe they say.
Rolling.
It is kind of refreshing to be like, hey, I know these guys. They like to bitch about girls.
This is Rivers being his classic old the feel when no girlfriend.
Very much so. We're in the top 3 now. This is a song that technically, when sort of we've talked about peace, damage in your heart, pardon me to a certain degree. This is one where I think it is sort of typifies the album, and it very much sort of could be considered an album cut, but it's just so good that it's elevated to this top 3 status. I'm talking about Hold Me.
Oh.
Yeah, we all had very high opinions of this song. Tyler and I both had it as our number 2 song.
Really?
Tyler, what do you particularly like about this track?
This song very much reminds me of Say It Ain't So.
Ah,
With that slow,
Yeah, the
kinda
quiet.
quiet verses and the big chorus. Had that in mind. I was reading through that band interview going track by track, and Brian says it reminds him of Say It Ain't So.
Ah,
So I'm
Yeah.
proud of myself for that.
I think that would definitely be the one song, 'cause that really does have the more mellow verse, and then it goes into the
yeah,
big.
like so like almost deliberately like super understated.
Yeah. And then it just starts the dun like it goes from being pretty mellow to the instantly
To the big,
in
very
your
fierce,
face.
yeah.
I think that might be what's giving me the Serious Blue album vibes on both this one and
The loud, soft,
Yeah,
dynamic.
huge
yeah.
Blue Album vibes for sure.
yeah, especially like the lead guitar under the chorus. That's just something that both this one and the last one we talked about, Haunt You Every Day, just have. I think they have a lot in common between both. Or just, I guess, a lot of the way the song kind of flows with it being more quiet, mellow, and then huge, almost like operatic, with great lead guitar work underneath the chorus.
Which is also weird because as much as this song reminds me of Say It Ain't So, I feel it also accomplishes this tone of I don't feel the need to compare it to Blue. I feel like
Yeah,
this
I
song
feel like-
you can listen to Weezer doing this and go, they're not the Weezer they were in Blue or the Weezer they were in Pinkerton, and that's not necessarily a bad thing.
And they're also
No,
not
of
trying
course
to.
not.
They're not
They're not trying to recreate
exactly.
those.
You can hear the similarities and hear sort of the obviously influences because it's their own music, but it doesn't. It never sounds like they're trying to do Blue. Like it doesn't. It never sounds like they went into the studio and said, "Let's make a song that sounds like the Blue album." I really love this chorus. It's super simple. It's like 10 words total. But I almost feel like it does that sort of like outpouring of emotion kind of thing better than Say It Ain't So does.
Ooh.
What do you think about that?
I think it feels very emotional. Maybe not entirely in the words, because the words are fairly emotional words, but Say It Ain't So is such a personal song.
Yeah.
The vocals really aren't delivered with as much emotion in Say It Ain't So as they are in this track. I think Tyler made a really good point about even though we compare parts of it to Blue or say things give us like Blue album vibes, like it really isn't a Blue album song. And like you said as well, like that's really not a bad thing. Like Weezer, this is 11 years after that album came out. They're not the same band. Just like personally wise, like each of the people have gone through like serious changes in their lives, as well as like a new band
Yeah, it's
member
different
with it.
people, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, I think we get carried away a lot, and not just us, just a lot of Weezer fans comparing stuff to the Blue album or Pinkerton, being like, oh, this song sounds like it could be right out of Pinkerton. And I don't think that's fair to Weezer to do. I think they've got a lot of great material that doesn't sound like anything off of Blue and Pinkerton, and you really shouldn't be holding stuff towards that. And I think this is definitely a song that kind of fits that. This is just a great standalone song without trying to recreate anything of the past.
Yeah, for sure. Like I would even say just sort of the opening, the intro part and the guitar riff or little bit of guitar line at the start there, I'd say almost immediately distinguishes it as specifically a make-believe song, because I feel like the guitar playing on this album is very distinct. I mean, it is a little bit more back to Blue, a little bit more power chordy sort of driving, but I feel like especially in the quieter parts and sort of the not chordy parts. I don't know much about guitars, but you know the individual guitar lines are very distinctive, and I mean, you can't really think of a guitar line from Blue that's not a riff with chords or a solo, really.
No, they pull off very clean guitar tones to pull it off very well in this song.
I think something interesting about this, like what you were saying about the kind of the riff throughout the intro and the verse. I think something interesting almost about that is it really reminds me of a lot of stuff Weezer's been doing lately, like stuff off of the White album or off of even Pacific Daydream now. I get a lot of QB Blitz vibes from the guitar intro, I guess, and even it being carried forward into the verse. I think it'd be interesting. I know a lot of times Weezer's kind of been saying like, oh, we're trying to go back to basics. We're trying to make an album that is somewhat reminiscent of Blue or Pinkerton. But I think it would be really interesting if they were to go on and write some more stuff that's like, oh, this is like reminiscent of Make Believe or Maladroit or...
Ooh, if they made an album that sounds like Maladroit, I would be on board.
Yeah. Yeah, we'd rather see them fail in an interesting way than be successful
Oh,
in a
so
mediocre.
we all think that now, do we?
Yes.
I think we've, as John Mayer said what we need to say about that song. Oh, these
You're
are
very
only-
proud of yourself.
These are very much only for me. We're at the top 2. I'm very excited. We've already talked about the big single from this album, We Are All on Drugs, and the other single,
The
Beverly
follow-up
Hills.
single.
the prequel. I think of Beverly Hills as the prequel to We Are All on Drugs. But this is another song that was released as a single. Actually, both these songs are, but this was, I believe, the 3rd single, Perfect Situation.
It's funny that you use the word prequel because the music video, which I watched today, is a prequel to Weezer.
Yeah.
A
And,
Preezer?
well, hold on now, because
It's a little portmanteau for you. Preezer. Do you get it?
yes, but I'm not enjoying it.
Oh, okay.
The music video is, the whole conceit of it is that before there was a band named Weezer, there was a band named Wheeze with, funnily enough, Scott Schreiner, Brian, Pat, and some other girl. And I don't know
No
why...
Cuomo. Guys, I'm on fire right now.
You are.
I'm sorry.
Well, what? That's Carl in the video, right? Selling the t-shirts? I'm pretty sure that's Carl Koch.
Oh, I haven't seen the video in ages. It might be.
Yeah, I've
I
actually
wa-
never seen this video. I'm
Okay.
Rivers
I'm very,
plays
plays the
kind of
lead guitar and Pat
roadie.
plays the drums. Sorry. I'm so fucking sorry. I'll shut up for a bit.
Maybe Pat should play the lead guitar and Pat should play the drums.
Take me, Pat.
Weezer.
Pat.
Just Pat.
Holy
Very
fuck.
soon we're going to get around to just talking about the
Pat.
shitty memes that people post on our Weezer, because there's a lot of them.
I only went there to try to find where you posted this on there, and I just saw like a bunch of shitty memes, but that
Bunch
just
of awful.
that just
surprisingly
Pat one
active
made me
subreddit.
cry.
I feel Rivers actively encourages that too, because he's
That's true.
constantly posting dumb Weezer memes. In the music video, I don't know why it's so funny to me, but it goes, I'm very sure it's Carl Koch. He's selling the piles of t-shirts and he starts drawing the R on
Yeah.
it. And the thought of my head is just, the R stands for Rivers.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah, there's that artwork for the single, but it was like never released as a commercial single. I don't think that would be like a CD single with like actual artwork. I think it was just released promotionally. I could be entirely wrong. And
Good,
there'd
good.
be like a stack of 6 of them from over beside Tyler, but I just don't remember. But I'm pretty certain it was only released as like a promotional single with like no artwork. But there is artwork that I saw for it just the other day for the first time, and it's like the Weezer logo but without the R, but with the R sharpied in.
Oh, see, is this the picture you're
Yeah.
talking about? This is the official single artwork.
Cool.
It looks like in the music video where they pen the R in.
Yeah.
Nice. So this is a song that has appeared in a couple of different versions on the albums themselves.
Step aside, Life of Pablo. Let's go back 11 years before that.
I'm a Fixed Perfect Situation.
Yeah.
They did that with the Blue album too, with Say It Ain't So.
Exactly.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
11
we
years
talked about
earlier.
Weezer's The Simpsons did it of the music industry.
Sure. Yeah, so when the album was originally released, it had the original version of Perfect Situation, and then when the single was released, they made a radio edit, or a single edit, I guess, where it has a shortened intro, synth track on the first and second chorus. The album version only has it on the second chorus, a reworked OO chorus, and the added backup vocals of Perfect Situation over the outro. And then when they were touring, apparently, and they sort of got the crowd to sing along, they sang it like the single version rather than like the original album version. And so on subsequent pressings of the album, they included the alternate version.
Actually, I think they did that with Hash Pipe as well.
Holy moly. This band cannot just drop a song. I guess if it's a single where they release it kind of again on CDs.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense to edit a song to make it like more appropriate for radio play, like with The Good Life, cutting out a lot of the excess like fade out stuff at the end. Like that makes perfect sense. But then I guess going back and taking that and replacing the original album cut with the single one, that I don't know, that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me.
Yeah, it's surprising to me that they would. I guess we're in the iTunes era at this point, but just that they would subsequently decide that they want the album to be different than it is. And again, I feel like maybe this kind of goes back to, if the fans want it a certain way, or the fans like this better, then we want to do it this way, and they're sort of partially being receptive to fan input. But we haven't talked at all about this actual song, which is a good one. It's got the big piano element to it, very poppy, much like Beverly Hills. I mean, as a 1-2 punch to start this album, it maybe doesn't give you a perfect picture of what the album sounds like, but you're gonna have some fun.
Yeah, it's hard to talk about this song though, because I feel like all my grievances with the other songs are just the things that they got right on this one. So all the things that are holding peace, or Pardon Me, or The Damage in Your Heart, I feel like this is the song where they just don't commit any of those flaws and they just nail it. It's, poppy music, pared down lyrics. He sometimes is just vocalizing without, like, the whole chorus doesn't have any words in it.
Yeah, there is no chorus. It's just OOs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the song got a lot of flack for that from some people, saying like, oh, you've just got a chorus with no actual lyrics, and it's just like making a appealing like melodic tune, right? Mm-hmm. But I don't see why that's a big deal at all. I mean, obviously, I think the verses hold like enough lyrical content. I mean, especially compared to a lot of the other tracks on this album, I think the verses have enough content in them to get away with the choruses being as kind of, I don't want to say bland, but as
some of the best
simple.
Defined verses.
Yeah, just like I said, like the not exactly, maybe specificity isn't the right word, but just sort of interesting lyrics, or like not trying to get into rote, this is what lyrics are.
Mm-hmm. This is a very focused verse. Get your hands off the girl. Can't you see that she belongs to me? And I don't appreciate this excess company.
That's a good rhyme. And the lyric I really like is, there's the pitch slow and straight. All I have to do is swing, and I'm a hero, but I'm a zero. It's like, hey, metaphors. Mm-hmm. He's not really talking about
lyrical
baseball.
Devices. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, hey guys, break some of these out every now and again. It could be a far less interesting song and just have a catchy chorus with no words, but I feel like the verses are a strong component to it, and especially the bridge. I really like both musically and lyrically, that make it sort of what it is as a song.
Plus, like, the way the bridge transitions into the solo is so perfect.
The guitar
with,
just bursts onto the scene. Yeah.
Especially with, like, Rivers holding the O as, like, the
Yeah.
guitar starts, like, screaming in.
Again,
I think-
very like it that I can't think of a specific song right now, but it feels like on Blue and Pinkerton they do that a lot, where sort of like he'll be finishing his chorus and then the
Guitar is like ready to go.
exactly the solo. Maybe
Yeah.
on Buddy Holly he does that, where sort of the before he's even finished you can
yeah,
sort
that's
of
exactly
hear
like
the
it.
solo gearing up.
Exactly. I think something interesting about this as well, between a lot of the singles on this album, is that Rivers' voice almost seems to change from previous albums at this point. I feel like, I don't really know how to describe it, but it sounds like he's almost singing or like speaking aggressively, and almost like I just imagine a little bit of spit coming out of his mouth while singing. A lot
Well,
of
now
his
I will
stuff.
too.
Yeah,
I don't know.
definitely his standard, like not really belting kind of tone does change a little. Like it's a little almost lower, a little more reserved maybe. Am I wrong?
Sorry, what did
It feels like his tone when he's not really going for it, his sort of regular verse singing tone is a little more reserved and a little lower or gruffer.
Yeah, I definitely feel that on something like Hold Me, especially.
I see the gruffness though in a Perfect Situation.
Yeah, I
and
mean-
like right after I don't appreciate all this excess company, I love the next little part where he goes, though I can't satisfy all the needs she has, and so she starts to wonder, can you blame her? Which is like, this is one of the this song is such an arena single. Like this is clearly meant to have a whole crowd of people singing that chorus. And right at the end it goes like,
I'm a cuck.
she probably doesn't like me that much.
And this is like presumably he's talking about his girlfriend.
Yeah, I think that's probably one of the deepest parts on this album, in my opinion.
I'd say just more kind of depressed.
Getting
Yeah,
back to some
depressed,
good old
deep.
Weezer patheticness.
Yeah.
Exactly. We have not had a good dose of pathetic in a while from these guys.
Yeah.
Well, there have been some
Well-
songs, but
There
not.
it feels like in these more recent albums that when they get pathetic, it's just like sort of like off-putting or painful to listen to because they're trying, it seems like trying harder to present a tougher image than they did on Blue or Pinkerton, where it was like those albums were just like, I'm shit, I'm a nerd, I'm a loser, etc. Whereas now it's a little like, I mean, I wouldn't call them confident, but it's a little more like put together.
A lot more self-assured.
Yeah. And then when they do sort of get Volney, as I put it,
Do you put it that way?
I've been known to. It can sometimes be like, oof, guys, like go back to what you were doing before. But on this song, I feel like it really works.
Not to just talk about the music video, but one thing that's always in my head when I watch that is that Rivers has such an odd relationship with aging. So when I watch this video, it really does, he almost seems younger than he looks in certain Blue videos, even though they're a full 10 years after. And it's also weird to watch music videos from like Everything Will Be Alright in the End, where he looks exactly the same as he did 10 years before that.
Yeah. Maybe it's him wearing the black turtleneck on the cover, but I feel like in this era he kind of looks like a high school drama teacher.
On the cover for sure. Here's the pitch, slow and straight. It swings it, and it's a hero.
Hey, nice.
Thank you.
It's our number one track.
I think I know what this one is.
It's supposedly Rivers' favorite track.
Rivers is.
Yeah,
Rivers' favorite track?
Rivers's.
Reverse.
It's reverse. You know how on your computer you've got backgammon and then you've got reversey, and you're like, what is reversey? Is that a type of solitaire? No? Is this crowd work doing it for anyone? I'm sure someone out there is like, hey, I know about reversey. And to you, I salute you. But this song is This Is Such a Pity. This is our number one song. It is
It's
one
good.
of it. It's a good one. It is probably the most, or if not the most, then one of the most unique sounding songs on the album.
A very un-Weezer like song.
Yeah,
Very
uses the
un-Weezer-like.
lead synth line.
We have not seen that since Pinkerton.
Lyrically, it's less of Rivers as the victim or Rivers as sort of like just being shitty or like just, just being sort of pathetic, and it's more him being like an asshole is how I feel about this song.
Yeah, that part where he goes, "You think I'm a fascist pig?" It's like, it's not like Rivers like explain yourself. It's like, Rivers, is this true? Like,
Yeah. I mean, like,
oh, you think I'm a fascist pig? Like, well, are you? Like,
yeah.
that's a weird thing. That's a weird way to phrase it.
Yeah, all of his lyrics. I mean, this kind of sounds like a codependent, abusive kind of relationship almost, and like it's a side of Rivers that we don't really see, at least outwardly, in the songs.
It's, yeah, it could be abusive, but it's also not. It doesn't seem too clingy to me in that way. It seems the opposite. He seems like kind of him more going like, well, this whole thing is messed up and it's all just a disaster. So what a pity.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the "I didn't mean to get so mad" line really, like, to me, that very much evokes the idea of like an abusive relationship where it's like he like freaks out and like does something insane, and then it's like, oh, I'm sorry, and like as if that kind of like makes it okay, and then that sort of like cycle, that's what this song kind of evokes for me. Like, everybody thinks we're crazy, they're about to call the police.
I always thought that line, like, everybody thinks we're crazy, they're about to call the police. Every time I heard that, I'm just like, oh, like, what a horrible line. That sounds so stupid. But then, just, like, now that we're kind of talking about it and, like, it kind of clicking in my head, like, oh, this relates back to the abusive relationship and him, like, getting pushed over the edge and freaking out. I think that makes it a lot better of a line when you think about it in that sense and not just kind of take it out of context, because it kind of sounds uncomfortable when he sings it, I think.
Yeah, in a vacuum, maybe, for sure.
Yeah.
So-
I still think the fascist pig line is a terrible line.
Really?
Yeah, it's like if he just explained himself a bit more on that.
Yeah.
Is he actually meaning
The use
like
of the word
a
fascist is a strange
And
one.
yeah.
hit pop song.
I don't think he fully knew what the word meant.
I don't think that means what you think it does.
I was about to use the word prescient today, and I was like, does that word mean what I think it means? I looked it up. It's like kind of knowing about things before they happen, because like you figure it's super likely. I'm like, that is not what I thought it meant.
Yeah, I feel like there are words where it's like you learn them from like you only know them in like a certain context, and you try and like apply them somewhere else. So like he probably has just heard the phrase fascist pig and thinks it means asshole.
It's just an insult.
Or maybe he's just saying that's what she thinks.
I think that
because
is
she
exactly what he's
doesn't
saying.
because she doesn't know what the
This
word
is the
means.
whole she never heard of Green Day thing.
Yeah, she never heard of
Like, how cool is that? Or is like,
a
oh,
form
how
of
cool
government.
is that? What a weird story. This girl won't go out with me because she
Freak.
hasn't heard
Hasn't
of
she heard
Green
American
Day.
Idiot?
Fun fact about this song.
Okay.
The synth was recorded on a $75 Casio.
Oh, that is fun.
They tried a bunch of expensive, they had Rick Rubin at their side. They tried a bunch of expensive synths and other things, and they said the sound that just felt right was this dinky little starter piano.
Yeah, I agree, honestly. Like, the just kind of hums along. Like, it sounds a little bit like blown out almost.
Mm-hmm.
It just works for me.
I think it's a great sounding synth, especially for the song. It's very like overly 80s in my opinion.
Yeah. Just listening to the album through, when this song comes on, right away you perk up and you're like, whoa, now we're talking. And which is funny because like the first 3 songs are all great. And then, but then like when it gets to this point, it's like you really start moving and grooving.
I dig this, and this is Weezer going in a very new direction.
Yeah. It's the first time you say, this is a cool song.
This is not
Yeah.
a pity, is what I think when I hear the song. This is probably the glitziest guitar solo.
Yeah, I
In-
was gonna
in
say,
my head,
does
like-
anyone else get serious Flock of Seagull vibes off this?
Yeah, I was reading a a review that it was actually that Pitchfork review, I think,
Like gave it
the 0.4,
Abysmal.
where they basically say
That
like
man should be shot. Who wrote that?
it's probably the same 17-year-old.
I'll be the fascist pig. Line them up and shoot them.
I just scrolled past that. They lurch into a flaccid take on Joan Jett's "I Love Rock and Roll."
Ouch.
What?
That's what they say about Beverly Hills.
Oh. I thought you
Yeah.
were talking about This Is Such a Pity. I'm like,
No,
not.
I would never. They basically say that the one redeemable song is "This Is Such a Pity." Basically,
whoever wrote that review's an idiot.
well, yeah, and they compare it to the Cars.
Yeah.
They also call them the Wees in the album, which I'm a fan of.
Seriously, what's the author's name?
Let's go
kill
find
them.
him.
Rob Mitchum? Robert Mitchum? Is that?
He sounds like a guy that we would know already.
He also reviewed U2's Songs of Innocence. Foolishly gave it a 4.6.
Oh, out of 5?
I hope so. It's the best new music if I ever heard one. Seems like he mainly reviews Neil Young albums at this point.
What
Anyways.
a great thing for him to go to, like, oh, I'm big into reviewing Neil Young. You know what? Let's do
branch
the
out into Weezer.
Yeah.
Oh, it doesn't sound anything like Neil Young. 0.4 out of 10.
You Google artists like Neil Young, and Weezer is the first option that comes up.
What a jackass.
I hate that guy.
Let's have a whole episode devoted to tracking this
We
guy
just
down.
look up personal info on this
I'm
guy.
looking into him as we speak.
Share it publicly. Oh, we already revealed his name.
Yeah, Rob.
I will
Robert
say I
Mitchum.
like all the ingredients of this except for the falsetto that finishes up the
Are
chorus.
you talking about...
Oh, this is a pity.
That Christmas Carol like
Yeah,
thing that doesn't-
don't. Oh, you just
Christmas
ruined
Carol.
it for
he's
me.
already
Just
he's already
ruined
said
the
this is such a pity like 3 different
Yeah,
times.
it's like we get that it's a pity.
That's
Yeah,
the name.
you know
I'm looking
what?
at the name of the song right now. We
You know
don't
what?
need
Yeah, that
Brian
part-
or Scott, whoever, to go on and do it in that falsetto.
That's like
That could be a shortcoming of this song. Now that you mention it,
It's true. It's that maybe he's like playing the role of the audience, being like, "This is a pity. You're right." It's an audience surrogate.
The thing that I'm doing right now is pretty bad.
Now that you mention it, that's true. That's what they should have said instead.
It's a little too men in tights for me, but all right.
Sure, that's fair.
okay.
So yeah, do we have anything else to add about this song? I feel like we haven't given it enough justice because I really do think it is a fantastic song.
We haven't talked about it technically much either. I don't think. I mean, we talked about the synth and the solo, but like
It does
I
that
don't really-
Pinkerton thing where the solo is technically 2 guitars playing at once, but they kind of are intertwined so
Yeah.
closely that you don't think of it as a 2 guitar solo. It's just a really good solo.
Yeah, that really was big on Pinkerton, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Not even just for solos, for like the intro to Pink Triangle or like something like
Falling
that.
for
Yeah,
You.
sort of guitars
Falling for You,
echoing
yeah.
each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that I
it's good
dig
stuff.
that. It always works really well if you know what you're doing, I
Yeah,
think.
that-
And Rivers seems to know what he's doing, so
I think he knows a thing or two. But oh, just farting my brains out.
the fart mic
But yeah, the guitar solo I think really fits into it. It is
It upgrades the whole rest of the song for me.
like we said. It's a bombastic song. It's maybe not as much as an arena song as some others on this record, but definitely a very big song and a very operatic song. I mean, I'd say it's the most operatic of anything on this album, especially lyrically. And then that, you disagree?
I think Haunt You Every Day seems fairly
that's fair,
operatic
that's
to
fair.
me as well.
Yeah, and then the guitar solo is appropriately like super
Big,
like
yeah.
it kind of reminds me of the Final Countdown.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
of course. Of
So-
course.
Because
Which is-
of that one part where the guitar goes like, down.
Yeah,
yeah.
It's like it musically sounds very similar.
Yeah.
And I mean, I can't think of a more bombastic song than the Final Countdown.
Mr. Bombastic by Shaggy.
Hey, nice. It Wasn't Me by Shaggy.
They've got a really cool thing they do at the end of this song where it's sort of a fade out, sort of the chorus.
They just
but-
repeat, I love. Yeah.
Yeah, where they kind of change it up a bit and just keep repeating it, which you don't see a lot of on Weezer songs, I don't think. Didn't really think about that comment before I made it, so I could be completely wrong and it could be on like every other song, but I think it works really well. I enjoy it.
Every separate component of this song I really enjoy, and then they're all in the same song.
Yeah. There
Yeah,
you go.
it's one of those rare cases, especially on this album, where everything flows together and there's no part where you're just like, could have left this out or done a better job.
Yeah,
of it.
and like I mean, I think a lot of amazing songs, like the verse, it might have like the most amazing hook ever, and then the verse is kind of just like a way
Flop.
to get to the chorus.
Exactly.
I feel like this is the best sort of
The
it
verses
feel-
are building up to the chorus every time, and you like it.
Yeah, it feels like they worked hard on this song, and it shows.
Exactly. Like you could listen to this song and it not even go to the verse or the chorus, and you'd still be happy with it. I think just because the verse is that good.
I think the first time I heard it, I didn't make it all the way to the guitar solo, so I was kind of like, "Oh, this is like good, but it's just like super not Weezer at all." And then I heard it the whole way through with the guitar solo, and for me, that was like, "Oh, that elevated the whole song up to another level." And that guitar solo keeps naturally coming back in through my head. I like
So
it.
I think that does it for our list.
Whew.
We did it.
We
Did it.
got out of the way the horrible album cover, right? We did that at
Yes,
the
we
beginning.
did. We
Okay.
did talk about the album cover. ... A lot of discussion, which I love.
Really freaked us out.
Sure. So I will list our complete rankings from bottom to top one more time for everyone. So starting from track 12, My Best Friend, Pardon Me, We Are All on Drugs, Beverly Hills, Freak Me Out, Damage in Your Heart, Peace, Haunt You Every Day, Hold Me, Perfect Situation, This Is Such a Pity. Solid list, I'd say.
Yeah.
Just general things about this album. Critically, it was not well reviewed at all. I mean, we talked about the 0.4.
Robert Mitchum.
All Music, it originally gave it a 4-star, and then several years later, like, quietly downgraded it to 3 stars.
What?
Why would you even do that?
The very, very fittingly named Adam Downer, he gave it a 1.5 and said it's a whirlwind of mediocrity and self-deprecating lyrics.
An idiot.
And then this seems to be a very common theme. This is from Slant Magazine. The truth is that any Weezer copycat band could have made this record. Blah, blah, blah. Power chord laden pop lacks the conviction. But then IGN, you remember our boys IGN when they reviewed, was it Maladroit that we were looking at? They gave this a 9.3,
Whoa.
saying
Wow.
the Weezer you've been missing is back. And I agree with this take.
Maybe that's because they hated Maladroit. so
Yeah,
much.
exactly. I mean, the one thing I do really agree with in the Pitchfork review is that it basically says that Green Album and Maladroit, they basically got free passes
Yeah.
because it was Weezer and they had built up this following and then they were coming back. Like, the Green Album is the definition of like a bunt of an album, and yet it was the most well received of this sort of, I would call this sort of a trilogy of albums.
Yeah, that
it definitely-
I think that's a very fair.
It definitely feels like we're through with sort of the immediate return era, and we're sort of moving into this late 2000s, a little bit questionable kind of era. I would say Green Album I definitely consider to be the weakest of the three. I consider it to be the most underwritten of the three. I consider it to be the sound of them not trying very hard, and yet very
People
well-reviewed.
really look back on it with a much
Yeah.
better. Yeah, I'd say Make Believe is probably better than Green. I feel it just has this, I don't know, the general reputation around it is like, oh, this is just not good.
Yeah.
Where
I think-
Green is far more like blandly commercial.
There has to be so many factors with that too. Like even from the horrible album cover to the fact that everyone just kind of associates
Beverly Hills,
the
yeah.
album with like Beverly Hills and being like, oh, this is just that like one hit album, I guess. I mean, obviously there was like songs like Perfect Situation off this and We Are All on Drugs that were huge. But I guess from like any like casual fan's perspective, this would sort of just be like the Beverly Hills album.
Yeah, generally, I would say to sort of sum this era up, if Green is the blue of this era and Maladroit is kind of the Pinkerton, I feel like this album...
Make believe is the green.
Of the next album.
No. No, I was going to say...
The make-believe of this era.
I was going to say, it feels like they've sort of worked out the kinks, you know?
Yeah.
Like, Green is like, oh, we made a good pop record, but it's not really that good or, like, well-written or memorable. And then Maladroit is like, we made this, like, heavy album that has a lot of, like, interesting ideas on it and is great, but it doesn't, like... Still, the songs aren't quite there. And then this feels like they find that middle ground between...
They seem happy with the...
Yeah.
Exactly. And they I'd say,
for.
like, they sound the most Weezer-ish they've ever sounded. Like, without being direct imitations of Blue or Pinkerton.
Yeah.
It
Super
sounds
poppy.
like they find a sound that works for them. Like, like I said, a happy middle ground.
Which is weird to view it in that terms of, oh, they found their stride, because immediately after this, they take another 3 years off, right? They go on
Well, it was
hiatus
3
again.
years between Maladroit and this one, then another 3 years between Make Believe and the Red album.
I know with Make Believe, though, like we said, this was a weird production phase where they wrote hundreds of songs
Right.
and combed through all of them.
And demoed hundreds of songs.
Yeah, and then the next 3 years were spent like...
Was that an actual break, or...?
No, there were plenty of demos done. There was some touring done during then. I've never really given too much thought to the period of Weezer between Make Believe and the Red album. Maybe
Well,
I should
actually-
look into that.
Well, I'm
But-
reading on Wikipedia. They did sort of go on a hiatus during this period. Rivers got married in 2006. He went back to Harvard and finished
Yeah.
his degree. Meanwhile, Pat and Brian appeared in the 2006 film Factory Girl. Not to be confused with that movie with Steve Martin, which I might be confusing with another movie entirely. I'm thinking of
Material
Shop
Girl
Girl.
by Madonna?
I wish. Fun
By
Madonna
Stevie
fact.
Wonder?
I finally realized I always thought that one song that she had, I always thought I'd heard a remix or a mashup with that one ABBA song. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, the one that takes Gimme Gimme Gimme. But
Yeah,
Gimme
exactly.
Gimme.
But it actually is just a sample.
Yeah.
It's not a mashup. I didn't know that.
What's that Madonna one
Oh,
called?
shit.
What?
So Steve Martin wasn't Shop Girl. And you know who else was?
Patrick
Jason
Wilson.
Schwartzman. Oh, full
The
circle.
Schwartz, yeah.
Yes, he used the Schwartz.
We did it.
We did it.
How can we make this go even more full circle based off this?
Oh, we already got Fart Mike, and
You can
that's...
paint your room.
Oh, we got fart mic. That was.
That's gonna do it for this episode. Do you guys agree with me? It does feel like an end of an era here.
I think so too. I usually associate this with the Green and Maladroit era, even though realistically I think it feels like it's part of that era, but it also feels like a transition album kind
Yeah,
of.
definitely.
Because you
Like-
can definitely see like kind of a logical step between the kind of cluster of Maladroit and Green. Like you can kind of see Make Believe as a stepping stone towards Red. I think Red goes... Well, you know what? I won't say what direction Red goes in. We'll talk about
save
that
it,
next time.
save it. But I do agree with you.
I don't know. This is weird because Weezer at this point, from a certain angle, has taken 3 left turns.
All commercially successful, mind you.
Then more Green was obviously super safe, super... I'm going to say it now, Green was super boring. Maladroit had some really good singles, but also had some really weird experimental stuff. And now they're back to doing super mainstream stuff, but which I think is vastly more interesting than what they did on Green.
I think that's going to do it for today's episode. Again, I want to thank you all for listening, as per usual, especially this one. Hope you enjoyed. I hope we didn't ramble on too long, but I know we did. So, to finish off, why don't we go around, as we like to do, give our recommendations on a non-Weezer album that we've been enjoying recently. I'm going to start with Tyler.
I was kind of worried that Chaz and I would have the same album because mine is Little Dark Age
Yeah.
by MGMT. It's just a super cool, interesting, eccentric, quirky, but still fun. A lot of songs are super optimistic, very 80s, just nice breezy listen that still has a lot of dark points. MGMT is one of those bands where you look back, they made a sound that everyone then went and tried to copy, and so few people, often imitated, never repeated or whatever, but they took a bit of time off, and I was never really that into them when they first started. I feel like they were the first kind of modern band that I was aware were having a big wave of hype.
Yeah.
I feel like we talked about MGMT at one point in like 2007.
Yeah, it's like children.
Yeah. It was little babies. And I had a lot of trouble connecting to modern music back then, but now it's like, oh, this is a really great album. Me and Michael is
still
a jam.
really good. Chaz.
Well, yeah, Tyler fully took that from me. So, yeah, for sure, Little Dark Age is a great album that you should definitely check out. But since I got to pick something else, I think I'll go with Young Sunset by Rupert Angel Eyes. This is an album that came out a couple years back by a band from Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Minneapolis.
Yeah, something around that area. Did I plug them last time?
You plugged the
did.
joint.
Yeah, the joint one with Joey Michaels. But this one, I would highly recommend checking this out. I think it's got a lot of catchy, like, pop, rocky songs.
A lot of Weezer in that album.
Yeah, there's definitely some Weezer in that album. I just can't say enough good things about this album. So I think you should really check it out. It's available on Rupert Angel Eyes' Bandcamp.
And also Spotify and Apple Music.
Spotify and Apple Music, I guess, too. I don't really use that, but thank you, Tyler, for that. But definitely check them out if you want if you want to take a break from Weezer, but still have something that...
But you don't want to, leave Weezer completely behind.
Exactly.
I am going to recommend, this isn't an album per se, it's an EP. It's from the band Tennis. Have either of you heard of these people?
I have not.
So they're a duo. I believe they weren't married when they started, but they're now a husband and wife. They started their band after they went on like a 6-month sailing trip, just sort of out of the blue, and then they came back and were like, we're gonna do a bunch of sea songs.
Cool.
But so they've had a few albums since then, and they just released a new EP a couple of months ago called We Can Die Happy. It's my favorite thing that they've released so far in their discography. Their songs, I really like their stuff, but their songs can kind of have the tendency to not be as tight as they could be. They sort of meander and lope along a little bit. But these 5 songs are just really well crafted, really tight, sort of like 70s evoking, I would say. I really enjoyed the singer. I really dig this EP and have found myself revisiting it a lot more than I expected when I first listened to it, because they're not one of my favorite bands, but I really enjoyed this project. So everyone check it out.
Nice. EPs are great because I've listened to so many albums where you go like oh, there's like 5 or 6 really good songs and the rest are kind of meh.
Yeah.
Like, if only they knew how to, it's like, yeah, they do. A lot of people do that all the time, and it's called EPs, and you listen to these really good EPs, and you go like, oh, I wish they did more.
Foster the People, classic
Sure.
3-song EP.
We'll get into that on our Foster the People podcast.
What are you gonna say about Foster People? Say it quick.
I was just gonna say I still
You're on the
think
Weezer Discogs page right now.
I don't even know how I got here. I wasn't even paying attention. My mouse and fingers automatically went to it.
Muscle memory.
Muscle memory. Oh,
Or his
fuck, I do
homepage.
the same thing with just searching Weezer on eBay.
No one take that idea from him, by the way. Because that's how he gets
He
all
will
of his
take
shit.
legal action.
So
Okay.
that's gonna do it from us for us, from myself, Tyler, and Chaz. I wish you all the best. Have a great time.
Have a great situation.
Have a perfect pity in Beverly Hills.
Please hold me.
Again, on the walk there, one of the guys that was here with us drinking, he's an interesting guy. I really like him, but Bridget was like, man, Joel, you need some fucking food, because we were on the bus from Toronto together, right? And we got back at like 7 or something, and we were gonna stop in and get some shit at Shoppers Drug Mart, but they were closed. And so I'm like, okay, I guess I'm just drinking without eating today. And then
Always a good idea.
then we were talking about like peanuts. I'm like, man, I was gonna buy so many fucking peanuts. It was gonna be great. And this guy Anthony just reaches into a pouch in his like jacket and pulls out like a Ziploc baggie of peanuts. Like, dude, what the fuck? And he hands me a bunch, and they were tasty as shit. I sobered up real quick though.
Nice.
Do 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 do